You should now hear me. Hooray! Oh, goodness knows what was happening then. For some reason, although plugged in twice in fact, through both USB-C and USB-A, my mic decided it wasn't here, even though I tested it earlier. Thank you for that, Mike, but we're happy now. So, I have designed a bit of a square, which we mainly did on the stream last week, and this week we're going to make it. So today I'm starting with a pile of bobbins. I haven't wound enough bobbins, but I have certainly wound enough for today. In part, why is enough for today the right statement? Well, I've done quite a lot, and it is most of them. Although, you'll understand that the way I've kind of stored them, counting them is not the easiest thing, and that sounds really stupid. But I have put them together, and I'm in a position where we are going to make, first of all, a quarter of a square. So we're going to make the first triangle of one of my squares. If we like how it looks, we will make a whole square, and then should we really like to, well, then we'll make more squares. We may make some other squares as well as these squares. If we like it. I'm reasonably confident I will like it. But it is like decorating a house in that you get the tester pot and you slap it in the bit in the wall and you go, yeah, I really like that. You then paint all the walls and go, looks bloody awful. I'm not living with this. I did this with our bathroom once. Now, bathrooms in the UK... Really? We're on ads? Great for that. Bathrooms in the UK are usually blue. It's just a thing. 90% of the bathrooms in the UK are some shade of blue. Usually a summer sky blue, i.e. a fairly bright, happy blue. And, well, we decided on fudge. Because fudge is a glorious thing to eat, we'll have fudge. So we expected this kind of, not too muted, but a kind of tan brown, muted-y kind of brown. Tango orange. No fudge in the history of fudge was this colour. So, but when we did the tester pot, well, it didn't look particularly orange, partly because it was on a blue background. And so, because there were other colours, it masked the ugliness till you'd finished painting the bathroom. Now, okay, it wasn't the biggest room in the world. But tango orange kind of is not the colour for your bathroom. And it was a bit much. So, immediately, we had to go down, well, I went back down the paint shop, and I bought blue. And it was now blue. Actually, what colour's my bathroom now? I've changed houses since then. Got a feeling it's kind of magnolia. Anyway, let's have a look at where I'm at. So, I wound some bobbins. Now, there aren't the same number of bobbins on each of my safety pin type things. You'll be noticing that these bobbins have spangles. These are called Midland bobbins, and I'm not a fan of spangled bobbins. But why am I not a fan of spangled bobbins? Well, because the spangles are annoying. Now, they're useful, but they're annoying. It's a bit like stabilisers on a bike. On a push bike, you put stabilisers on a young child's bike. If as a more seasoned cyclist, you could get on the bike, because let's face it, who puts, stabilisers on a full-grown bike? But let's pretend you could get on the bike and use it without, kicking yourself in the chin all the time. You now can't really lean to go around the corners, because stabilisers are there. And they start getting annoying. And these spangles are much like stabilisers in that what they will do is it will mean that the bobbin will kind of stay where I put it. Hurrah! This is a great and glorious thing. But then they also get in the way when you're swapping bobbins because they're wider and then they catch on each other. And then inevitably some thread gets caught in one of the spangles, or somehow it takes feats of effort because, you know, there are other ends of the bobbin for that. But somehow it gets tangled, or the beads fall off and start running around the place, and now you've got a piece of wire that jabs you in the hand because you didn't notice. And don't get me wrong, they can be pretty. You can have some really glorious ones. I'm trying to see the one that I bought these. I did not make these. Someone was selling, basically, I think it was about 200 bobbins for not a lot. So I bought them, and this is they. Because I'm buggered if I know where mine are. But there was one bobbin that had a really glorious thing on it. Let me see if I can find it. And of course, like all things, especially when looking in books, can you find the thing you're after? Well, I can't, but fortunately, I do have another one very similar. So if I put this down, you can see that, actually there you go, that looks a bit better. If I put this down, you can see it's kind of got lots of small beads. It's got a very flexible, look, I can fold it in half and everything, set of little beads. Now that I could get behind. Something a bit more like that as a generic rule off the bottom of my bobbins. I could probably get behind that because you could almost make like little flags, for want of a word, and you could put numbers on it or letters or something, and a code, 2 letters, you know, so hexadecimal kind of style, and, you know, letters and numbers and things, so that you could number things, or at least, you know, but they would also be flexible, so they would lay flat, they would add weight to the bobbin, they would do all the things that the spangle does without being quite so irritating. Now, the only downside with it is that it's not very good for, well, sticking on safety pins. And you see, how is this so loose? I made none of these bobbins this loose. I was making them until very recently. I'm going to wind this bobbin. I'm going to wind this bobbin back on a bit because that's no use to anybody. And now that's round the wrong bit. There we go. They take quite a lot of time to wind, these bobbins, because they've got very thin heads. So obviously, you know, if it's 5 winds per centimetre, it takes a while. And this is not going so well because, of course, it's down the far end of the bobbin, so I can't just, of the safety pin, so I can't just take it off and wind it up. That will do. And then I need to half-hitch that. That will have to do for now. So let me take my bobbins away and try and find somewhere safe to put them. And let's get started. Right, let's start with these, because, well, why not? Now, the advantage... See, how did that happen? The advantage of the safety pin was supposed to be that they remained in order, therefore you can pull them off in order. So I grabbed the first 2, and one had gone round the loop the far side, and it was kind of popping out, and so when I picked the first one, it wasn't. So let me grab my pins. You'll notice I've got a slightly different pillow today. This one's got a square in the middle. I will not be using its squaringness. Now, why am I putting the pin in the pinhole the other side of the line? We are making this triangle here, and I have put the pin there. This is because when you start these things, you inevitably start not on your first pin. You have to do something to get to your first pin. So, I need 2 pairs of bobbins. Actually, I'm trying to be clever and trying to be good, and desperately failing, as it seems, because they're all knotted. How can you be knotted up? I find it very difficult sometimes to feel coordinated doing some of these things. So, for example, when doing something like this, the getting started, because you've got a pile of pins in a pot and an enormous pile of bobbins, it kind of limits what you're doing, because you need to have everything available to you, but at the same time, everything can't be in the right place. Once you've got all your bobbins underway and you've got a big pile of bobbins on your cushion, and frankly you're sweating because they're all tangling up, but it's actually better because at least they're all in play and held down at least by one end. Until then, it just seems to get complicated. So I've twisted those, and there is a whole pile of me that says they should be fine where they are. But I also know that this is not true. More bobbins. More bobbins. And another pin. So yes, this you'll be wondering how I'm quite accurately poking pins in the holes. This is because we do what is known as pricking. So at one point, oh great, both these bobbins have come off the ends. That's a really pleasant thought. So let's try a different knot on you then. I spent a lot of time, well, more time than you'd probably like to believe me if I told you, which was winding the bobbin and poking them onto the safety pin things. And the reason that is as complicated as it is really quite simple, and I've just broken a nail, which is no good with lace making because of course the thread goes straight in the hole. Is that you find yourself sitting there going, windy, windy, wind, windy, windy, wind. It must have taken me 4 hours to wind these bobbins, if not a little bit more. But also, having printed off my lovely green pattern on, it's just standard green paper. Why is it green? It's green so that it doesn't burn your eyeballs looking at it under a bright light, because this is actually under a bright light. But also to make it kinder on your eyes in general for staring at it, because you stare at it a lot. And then I laminated it. So I put it in my laminator, and happy laminator, num num num, got 3/4 of the way through the piece of paper. Now it's, as I say, it's about 5 and a bit inches in. Well, I think I made this one about 5 and a bit inches wide, right? Oh, it must be nearer 6. I could measure it. Anyway. And it started going, ang, ang, ang. And it was like, you're usually quite quiet, Mr. Laminator. What is your problem? And then I realised that the amount here, it got to about here. Now, obviously, the laminators say so wide, but there was nothing yet poking out the other side. This is not right. So I looked in the out hole in case it had just kind of got a bit stuck on the inside and, almost on a lip or something. Not a sign. Then the smell started. Burning melted plastic. Lovely smell. So I, of course, immediately powered it off before it burst into a fit of flames and had a look at the front. Now, there was a button on it to, quote, release the roller. Yeah, like that did anything. And eventually I'd managed to pull some of my piece of paper out. Yeah, there was no plastic. It was now liberally spread round the inside of my laminator. Most of the paper was missing, and the paper that I did get back was burnt. So I obviously narrowly missed a small fire, which was not ideal. And so I had to buy a new laminator, which I did. And this is the result. The new laminator comes with corner rounder and a guillotine. The guillotine is not the best guillotine. It's not a bad guillotine. It's sharp. But what you can't do is butt the piece of paper up against the solid edge, like you normally do, and then chop it so that it's square. Because it doesn't cut to the edge. Which is why there's this little kind of dodgy bit in the corner, because that was my very first cut, and I went, what's a bit shit? And anyway, let's get on to the whole essence of, we will make some lace today. So, by default, lace making is not an overly chatty sport. And as you know, I struggle quite a bit with the whole shenanigans of talking while doing. It is not my best. See, these should be so much longer, but then you can't see them. We shall see. Oh, bent pin, get rid of that. Don't need them bent before I start. These are very fine pins I have chosen to go with, so that the pinholes are less pinholey. The slowest part of working with lace, and I was talking to a lovely lady on YouTube this morning who was also streaming some lace making, so I wholly recommend going to see Galicia B on YouTube, is the fact that winding your bobbins takes a long time, as I've kind of mentioned. In part because it is not a... Oh, how did that work? Did that wrong somehow? Yeah, I've done that wrong somehow. How am I gone wrong already? Lord have mercy, how did I manage that? So, we need another bobbin anyway. So, let's grab you. And you are not a pair. How is that a thing? You are suddenly now a pair. Seriously, bobbins. And you've come undone as well. Excellent. This is going to be the main theme of the day, is that all the ones that I wound yesterday and carefully knotted, you don't, well, it is a knot, but it's not a knot. The half hitch knot, so more of a fancy looping that you do, is clearly not grabbing these as well as it should. So let me try a slightly different knot for all the ones that are grumpy. Did I not put a pin in? I thought I put a pin in. Pins. Me and pins and the inability to pick up a pin. So one thing I am hoping today, and I will need you to tell me, is that apparently buffering has been a thing. I know what was wrong. Should have done you first, I think is the short answer. So let's undo you. Take the pin out. Tiny. Oh look, there's a tiny pin there. I did it earlier. Tiny pin. Hang on to you for a moment. But yes, I will rely on you. I need to do something with this nail. There we go. Now I'm going to look. Where's my nail file? Under the bobbins. Yeah, that's nothing. Chompy chomp. Let's tidy it up a bit. Right. So. 2, 3, 4. You have been done. I have pins. So we shall pop you in that hole. And do that. We then want to take out those 2 bins, because we do, and give everything a little tug. And hopefully, as I was trying to say and then got sidetracked, was the fact that apparently buffering has been an issue. This does This isn't making sense to me today. How is this not making sense to me today? This should be making sense to me. So I've just done you two, and normally it would move on to that one. But I need to move... so I was right. I need to do you first. I didn't... Yeah. Brain cells, brain cells. My army for brain cells. Now you're ready. Oops. Oh, you come off. Oh no, you've just slipped. Thanks for that. No, you've come off, that's why. See, they just constantly come off, so I'm going to try a slightly different knot. There we go. But now I need to cinch it up a bit because it's too long. Try that. Still a bit long, but it'll be fine. So now you can go there, and you see the spangles are already annoying me, and I am not unwinding them all and putting them on different bobbins. That is not a thing. So note to self, for the rest of the squares, we will not be using spangled bobbins. So, you two, because they're all getting all kind of matey down here at the bottom, and because they're wire, they just mate and get really annoying. So we will put you in this dainty hole and go back to the beginning, and we need to add another bobbin. So I'll grab you. You are currently attached to each other properly. Yay! So, another pin, taking out that pin. Yeah, I know, I should have just used that pin because that would have been easier. And we lasso pin. Actually, want to put it a bit more of an angle. Go on, pin. A bit more of an angle, thank you. So, bin. It's definitely harder working with the camera. Oh, and I also want to tell you, I did a good thing this week. I bought a thing for my camera, so the camera shouldn't die after an hour. You should be good to watch me for the next hour. Well, for all 4 hours without camera interruption, unless it overheats and dies. I bought it a thing that means it can plug in rather than run on its usual battery. Basically, it's a fake battery, and so that should be that sorted. Things that it was not one of the things. Why is this pinhole so small? Wasn't something I'd given a great deal of thought to when I originally set up my camera. It was that the battery wasn't going to last long enough because I really thought it would. It's supposed to last many hours, but apparently, obviously not on video is the short answer to that. So yes, we are sorting things out slowly but surely, and so your patience is appreciated on that. So yes, I don't know how everyone's doing today, because so far no one's even said hello. So I feel I am talking to myself. Which, let's be honest, that wouldn't be a first. I live alone. I talk to myself quite a lot. But there is... See, again, I'm picking up a new pen when I could just use that pen. There is... When you live alone, you inevitably talk to yourself. But, of course, there's talking to yourself and talking to yourself. And it depends, more or less, on exactly what it is you have to say. Because, sometimes you call yourself stupid because you put down the wrong thing, or you went and did something, or you burnt the toast, or whatever it is. But then there's the, obviously I talk to my dogs, because, otherwise I don't give them any commands, and they'd just be, well, actually, while they're asleep. But, when they're awake, they could be rather excitingly annoying of their own cause. And, so obviously commands to them to sit down, shut up, come in, leave that alone, the usual kind of, but it's not really conversational. And why is this suddenly so short? Let's make it a bit longer. So conversation is not something I have. Now, I do meetings at work for which sometimes I get to talk a lot. And sometimes I sit there and wonder, why anyone thought to invite me to this meeting, because, well, nothing much for me to be doing, paying attention to. It's I'm only there in case things go really, really long, and we've done this quite a few times before, so we're a bit practice at it, and, well, we've got an on-call system for that. So, it's kind of like, I really don't need to be here, and I sit on mute, and a couple of hours later, it's like, thanks for that, I've seen, speak to you soon, and off you go. And they're the only words I've said in a couple of hours of meetings. So I try to take part and offer some ideas and prove I am actually paying attention. But at the same time, sometimes there just isn't stuff to say. So I don't get to talk a lot. Which, of course, is why I talk a load of rubbish. Because, well, I haven't actually, I'm not a go out in the world person. In fact, I'm very far from go out in the world. Currently, my car is dead, and, well, I'm not that worried by it because, well, I'm not expecting to be going out anywhere in a hurry. So, I will need to take my dogs to the vet for their yearly stab soon. But then, I could hire a car for that. Which is potentially the plan. To get around that problem, I'm just lengthening my bobbins a little and making them all a bit more of the same length, because it just makes it the problem is you try and make them all the same length, and then you realise that the one you're measuring against, you're not measuring against at the same angle as all the others, so it does get a little bit they're never all going to be the same length, even though you could be quite precise about it. But they do need to be reasonably longer, but not, dangling off the edge. Oh look, time for some more pins. Let's see if we can remember to do the pin shuffle there, and tweak that. Now that is going to cause me problems later, because really I want really fat pins as my first set of pins down here, because later I have to get a crochet hook through it and stab it and pull a thread through it, which is near impossible. And so we'll be enjoying that later on, but that's when we finish the square. And right here, right now, we don't even know if that's going to be the thing. So there's a pair of bobbins. I don't know why these two are. I went to pull off the next pair, and they are a pair, but they're not a pair, and they seem to be mated with about 4 other pairs, and yet I placed them all on in order individually. That one, the spangles, just kind of ate each other. See, this is why I don't like spangles. Spangles can be really annoying. Did you just come off? No. Right. Spangle. Yeah, I'm definitely not enjoying the spangles. I was right. Spangles and I are not a thing. Should have stuck me guns. I debated long and hard. I have a lot of bobbins. I do have a lot of bobbins. There is no way you can say I don't have a lot of bobbins. I worked out I've got about 1,000 bobbins because I have a number of kinds. Now, previously you saw what are Swift bobbins, the big chunky ones with the rounded bottoms and the chunky and the very me, because, well, I'm not got small dating hands and I'm not a delicate kind of person. So a bit of chunk is quite appreciated, because, to be honest, these bobbins, I mean, seriously, look at the width of this bobbin. I mean, it's just tiny, and they weigh like nothing. And I do mean literally they weigh like nothing. And it does mean that you find yourself kind of go, which of course is why they've got spangles on to make them weigh a bit more. But which is the only reason I thought these would be good, is they're not much, they're technically potentially thinner than the Honiton bobbins I used for my first square, but these are, but being weighted and generally not likely to roll round your pillow, they will stay where you place them, that they would be better. And to be honest, that at that side of it, yes, they are. But I'm what? A handful. Oh, by the way, I worked out how many pins are in this square for anyone who's interested. The making of the entire square. Sorry, a quarter. Was it a quarter? Yeah, the quarter of the. No, it can't be a quarter. Can't be a quarter. I worked out it was 990 pins. It was not 898 or something. No, it was 898 pins. So that must be the whole quarter. It can't be the whole square. It can't be just a quarter. I could work it out. I could rework it out, because to work it out wasn't that hard. So because it's a triangle, in the first row there is like 1 pin, in the next row there's 2 pins, and in the next row there's 3 pins. Mathematically, it makes it quite easy to work out how many pins it is to fill the entire triangle. You then deduct all the bits like this where you miss a pin. And knowing that it was 990 and I ended up with 898 means that there was, 90 something pins that were missing. So but that'll be the full square. So you can work it out for yourselves. You'll have to divide it by 4. But I did do that to wonder how many pin stabs there would be. And as I did point out to myself, of course, she says, going to do it again. There's the pin. Take out the old pin. Move it down a thing. Give that a tug. How do I know to give the outside one a tug? I'm sure someone's wondered this. The answer is when you start here and you work down this, the pair that you started with actually ends up working down the whole line. Now, it obviously varies when you change stitches and potentially directions. So, for example, when I get to this line, I will do the triangle. I will then go and make the zigzag portion here. Then then I will probably do this bit, then that bit, then this bit. You have choices of orders. So generally you go to the highest unused point so far. But that is not necessarily essential. You can cheat, and you can technically work flat. You can... How in the name of mercy are all these bobbins so tangled? Let me take my glasses off and try and work out what in the name of bobbinitis is going on here. So, you come round the roundy thing. You are potentially looped over. Yes, that's a thing. You and you are a pair. So the pair I'm looking at is indeed a pair. It's just somehow wrapped. It's obviously the other ones have looped themselves over something somewhere else down the... Oh, yes, there it is. They've managed to come slightly undone, of course, and loop themselves around a bobbin further down in the pack. There we go. Let me just kind of wind that a bit around them so that the next time I come back, there will be bobbins. And now the spangle got caught on some other bobbins. See, I told you these spangles would get on my nerves. As I say, I am not a spangle fan, and I am deeply regretting my life choices at this time. Because, yeah. So, no, not that pin, that pin. And of course, the other problem I've got is that I have to sit so much further away from the cushion stroke working with it than I would if I was not filming it, mainly because you do not need to see the back of my head. That it does make it complicated. Makes it harder to poke the right hole because I'm not at the angle I would expect to be viewing it from. So the semi-practiced art of stabbing a pin in a hole. Bear in mind, of course, all I can see is the black dot, and I don't necessarily know. And the pin is... There is a hole, as I said. I stab at it quite a lot. I have pre-stabbed all the holes, because this makes finding the holes easier, because it means you can kind of scrape around a bit and the pin will find the hole. But you still have to be vaguely in the right place. And I also suffer, as I mentioned previously, I do have some vision defect where it's not that I don't have a sense of distance, because I do. I have a very good sense of distance. I'm usually very good at catching. What I am less good at is there are times when my brain freaks out. That's two pins together. My brain freaks out and can't decide what to look at. And when confronted with a big pile of dots, for example, it can get a little bit kind of wonky, and I find myself not being able to tell if, for example, like the threads, I can't tell if they're crossed left over right or right over left. I can't tell if the pin is before or after the dot. Now, you'd think that'd be quite simple of, you know, is the dot obscured by the pin? If yes, then it's before. If behind, no. But apparently my brain can't do that. It doesn't accept that. So it is, therefore, frustrating for me, because no matter how hard I try, I find myself... See, they're a lot shorter, so let's make these a little longer. I find myself I get frustrated with it because I know I should be able to see it. It's not like I've got some form of lumps in my eyes or black spots or anything of the sort, and yet when I want to see some things, I can't see them. It's almost like brain refusal. It just kind of goes, no, I'm not doing that. That is not a thing for us today. And it does. It makes it very difficult. So let me see. Let's see if I can pull these off. Ooh, yeah, good. So yes. Are you undone? Yes, you're undone. Of course you're undone. Of course you are. More undone bobbins. Rolly, roll. Bin. As I said, these are thin pins, so they bend quite a lot, which is not always a good thing. It can be detrimental, especially when you're trying to hang a pair on it, and it kind of goes, hey, I'll move. No, I don't need you to move. I want you to be still, which is why you put in a bit more of an angle to give them a bit more tug potential. It's not a hard tug, but it is a tug after all. So yes, I just can't decide whether it's the 58 billion pins or the winding of the bobbins that is the slowest portion of making lace, because the actual what to do and where to do it is usually quite simple. It's not like there's decisions to be made much, really. As I said, you can sometimes do maybe this bit or that bit, but the truth of it is you're going to do it anyway, so you know, it doesn't really matter. But it's not like it's an important decision. That spangle is really annoying. this one here, this big chunky one here, it's very annoying. As I said, all the spangles are annoying. I'm seriously regretting this life choice. And in fact, if I hadn't loaded the bobbins in case I really liked the square so much, because obviously I put enough thread on to do the whole square, in case it was, I decided it was the square of my dreams. Okay, maybe not the square of my dreams, but the square of which I am going to proceed, which I hope it is. I mean, I quite like the idea of it, so it's just a case of, in practice, is this looking as good as I think it does in my head? If yes, proceed. But I'm almost tempted to say no, just so I can rip all these bobbins out and use different ones. I'm not sure I really want to do like a week of fighting spangles. It's really not something I feel inclined to fight quite so much. Because it is. But I really don't know what takes the most. No, I actually think it is the pinning of the bobbins, because you end up doing so much of it. It is the placing of the pin, grabbing a pin and the placing of the pin. If the pin's already on the work and you're stealing it from a few rows earlier, it's generally not so bad, because it's already there. It is the issue of grabbing a pin from the pot, making sure it's the right way up, stabbing it in the hole. It looks alright so far. Well, it's not like I've done a lot, is it? Time for the next bin. Bobbin. So, are you the next bobbins? Yes, you are. They've kind of crept around the bottom of me safety pins, so there's kind of like two streams of bobbins now. Are you tied together? No, you've come undone. But something else that has improved, hopefully other than the camera lifespan, is the fact that with any luck, someone made me aware that it was buffering and stuttering and frame loss, and to be honest, nothing really said this from my end. I mean, it shows that I've got quite a high bit rate, but it's only 5k a second. It's not exactly, hard graft here. But it's, people said that there was some stuttering going along. Well, I'm proud to say I've done some work on my network over the last week, so I've been busy. Not only have I finished designing my square, printing it out and pricking lots of holes in it and winding bobbins and all the rest of it, I also replaced my entire network. Why did you do that, Liz? Well, the problem is I have Wi-Fi in this house, as do we all, and my Wi-Fi was perfectly good. I really liked my Wi-Fi. Windows 11 did not. Windows 11 kept having a fit about it. And when I mean it had a fit, it would not pick up an IP address, even though there was one available. And the system DHCP of assigning IP addresses was very much running and working, because, well, everything else could pick one up. And I boiled it down to a really simple principle. Because I was doing it over Wi-Fi, my Windows 11 somehow knew that my DHCP server, which I do have a DHCP server, not just the router doing it, was on a wired network. Well, but that's a different network. Oh my goodness, how terrible. You cut, so I'm going to ignore you. Even though it's all the same subnet. It just would not. So I did some shenanigans, and it did accept a IP address, but, well, Wi-Fi's a lot slower than a wired network. So, ages ago, I bought a TP-Link, use the Earth cable as your network cable system. And, to be honest, it was a godsend, because the Wi-Fi had been a bit crap, and it kept cutting out, and it was doing stupid things, and then I bought a new computer, and it did even more stupid things, so, because originally it was Windows 10, and it was a bit crappy under Windows 10, then it did all the shenanigans with Windows 11, so it was not having a good day, so using the Wi-Fi for my PC was less than ideal. And that's fine, because it is less than ideal. Wi-Fi for heavy use, or more solid, determined use, is less of a good plan. I know we do with our phones all the time, and people watch films and play games and, stream music and watch YouTube, and but an awful lot of those protocols build into themselves a level of buffer. But when you say streaming or gaming and every ping counts, well, then it starts becoming an issue. And I was and one of the main reasons I got the wired network was I like to play Path of Exile, and I could not play on the London server, which, clearly being British, the London server is the closest one to me, and should have been the best. It had the lowest ping rate, but I couldn't use it, because what would happen is anywhere between 0 and about 10 minutes, the ping would drop a few packets, Path of Exile would go, oh my goodness, I can't talk to the server, oh no, and you just stand there like an idiot. It stops responding to you, while of course all the monsters wail on you and die, or you die, not them obviously, and so it meant that I literally couldn't play. So I changed to the Washington server, and although this makes zero sense whatsoever, the Washington server, although having a considerably slower ping time, was more stable. Possibly in part because it was a much slower ping, it meant that it only expected to get a ping once every, say, 200 milliseconds, whereas the London one was expecting it once every 20. And so, because if you lost one in the 20, it was like, oh my god, that's a whole, thing. Whereas if the other one was a bit late, right, it wasn't so bad. So I played Path of Exile like that for quite a while. But as I say, having heard that, this was stuttering, and frankly the buffering thing was beginning to rub up, because I watch streams often in the evening, or watch is possibly not the right word. I am like many people with ADHD, for example, who like to have sounds on, but they're not actually paying attention to it. So I historically have always had the TV on for things, because my brain needs more than silence, which also makes streaming really hard, because I can't listen to anything, and if you're not talking to me, which none of you people do, which is fine, but if people aren't talking to me, and so I'm not having a conversation with someone, if I'm not engaged in it, and I'm, say, concentrating on unpicking my lace or whatever, right, you find yourself sitting there, my brain can't handle the silence. It needs noises. And in fact, this was very much proved when I sat my mock A-levels. I don't have any A-levels. But I sat my mock A-levels, and was it my GCSE? I think it was GCSEs. No, it was mock A-levels. And we'd been piled into this really bad, awful school hall. You know the kind. It's a brand new build kind of rectangle, somewhere detached from the school. It's got like one fan 40 foot up, which is supposed to, move the sweat around a bit. and there are some like 6-inch windows up there. So you have to have the lights on because otherwise you can't see nothing. And it was a roasting day. Now they did kindly open the fire doors for us. That only helped the two nearest to the doors people. The rest of us were sweating. And so I'm sitting in an exam. It's a maths exam. I'm pretty good at maths as a whole. And I was sitting in this thing and I kind of wrote my name and the magic numbers we had to put on it on the paper. And I'm staring at it. And it's kind of like, there are numbers. Yeah. Oh, I'm supposed to do something with those. I'm like, okay. Yeah, there are numbers. No, you actually need to process the question. You need to read it and do something with it. Yeah. And my brain just switched off. It just wasn't... It couldn't have cared less if you gave it money. And... God bless this idiot. An idiot! Because obviously everyone knew that there were exams. There were signposts everywhere. But some idiot came and sat... not paying attention to the fact that this hall was an exam centre, against the wall with the fire doors, and had like one of those big, I can't think of the right PC name for it, because of course the names that were called for it back then were not what you're allowed to call it today, but those big kind of portable radio cassette things, dog's having a woofy mare, and he sat by the door with this thing on full blast. It was like, going to a rock concert. And for the sins, just to prove how old I am, it was Hey Mona by the bloke from Neighbours. I hated that song. Bloody awful song. It truly was. But having listened to most of the rendition of Hey Mona, and kind of sat there, my brain kind of bopping along to the beat and going... Hey Mona, yeah, brain, shut up, right? And doing all of that, and not paying attention to the exam in front of me. We must have been there for 40 odd minutes by this point. A teacher immediately rushes off to escort offending idiot away because how dare you interrupt these people? They're taking serious exams, don't you know? I look back at the paper. I stormed through that paper in about 20 minutes. I got 98% on my exam. Without said idiot, I'd have pretty much got nothing because I was just staring at it. It was a bit like when you're not awake but you are awake and you're staring at the wall and it's kind of like watching paint dry. It really was watching paint dry. My brain was just kind of staring at the wall and kind of like, if a small bomb had gone off, my brain would probably have gone... is it lunchtime now? It really was desperately not present. But one rendition of Hey Mona, and clearly my brain woke up and got on with it. So, thank you, dude, whoever you were. You are my knight in shining armour. I, of course, then got told I hadn't attended enough lessons, because I'd kind of skipped a few, and that I couldn't sit my final exams, so they missed out on an A-grade student, but... and I went off and earned money instead. So, that's right, both these bobbins have slipped their knots, so I'm doing an alternative knot, which is less designed for this style of bobbin, but if it stops it falling apart, it stops it falling apart. I'm cool with that. Move the pin. Doug. Lasso the bin. It's really not that hard. Yeah, of course they're too short. Of course they're too short. There we go. So yes, I have no A-levels. I have no degree. But never mind. You don't need one. In the world, you can happily live your life without. Now, children, that does not mean you shouldn't. It is very beneficial to have these things to prove that you are intelligent, because lots of people won't believe you. Which is disappointing, but, these things are there to prove your intelligence and your trainability and your ability to learn. Not necessarily what you learn, because most of the time they don't really care. You can have done a degree in Klingon, they don't actually matter so much. It is much more about are you trainable? Will you learn stuff? Can you learn and research on your own? It's much more about, it says more about you and your learning abilities than what you actually studied. Now, sometimes, of course, it is actually important to study the right subject because the subject is important. But other times, in fact, many times, I've spoken to people in my industry, which is IT, and they don't have a computer degree. They don't even remotely have a computer degree. But it doesn't make them... The question is, do you have a degree? It's not, what degree do you have? It's, do you have a degree? Now, some companies will prefer, we prefer one in our field. But of course, everyone prefers, if you were to be offered a choice between, a value pizza that's made out of the cheapest ingredients or a really fancy, nice pizza with all your favourite toppings on it, made out of the best quality ingredients, chances are you'd want the nicer one, especially if you don't have to pay for it. And similarly, if you've done a degree in Klingon and you're not going to be a linguist, it doesn't necessarily matter what the degree was in, because, well, it doesn't. It just proves that you're capable of learning. But if you're going into architecture, if you're going into medicine, the degree, would you feel more comfortable with a surgeon who did a degree in PE or Klingon than a surgeon who did a degree in, say, biology? Sometimes it does matter, and there are times when these decisions are vitally important. But then there are also times when I know people who have never used anything from their education other than the simple act of reading, writing, and not a lot else. It is, let's face it, I learn, despite being dyslexic and having a job with English, because clearly, not having a problem with English, the spoken language, or having a problem with reading it accurately and being able to write it down accurately with grammar, which is something I never got taught, by the way. It is something where you find yourself going, out of all the things I learnt in my education, and I did history, German, computer science, well, I use that. Well, actually, no, I don't, because, well, I don't. What I got taught as part of computer science was completely irrelevant. Partly because it was, rapidly ending for nearly 40 years ago. Why is my work phone pinging like a pingy thing? I'm not on call. Let me just check what's died, in case it is something I should be aware of. Don't think it is. I'm going to say not. Yes, I'm going to say not. The world will not end if I do not do anything, so that's fine. As I say, I'm not on call, so it's not a big deal, but being the loving, wonderful employee that I am, I still check just in case. We do still have people working right now, although my work stopped at 12 o'clock today because I've done my hours. We do have staff who will be working till 5, hopefully. I do say hopefully because, we're not there to check on them, so they might not be, but as far as I know, they have to work till 5. That was always the agreement, so I assume they still do. Things do change and we don't necessarily get told, and it's kind of none of my business. I don't need to know because it's not me working it, so that could have changed. So yes, hole, tweaky tweak. See, we're not there yet, but already we've got quite a few bobbins, and, well, we're in just about a quarter of the way through it. Yeah. You see, this is my problem with the bobbins, is the amount of pins doesn't scare me. The amount of work in it doesn't scare me. It's how to handle this many bobbins. And part of the reason I chose to use these thinner but with spangled ones. Hi, Snuggle Bear! Part of the reason I chose to use the thin spangled ones was because they were thin and I would get more. Because if you look at this pile here, for example, this pile is reasonably dense. And the spangles mean that they don't tend to mingle so much. But I'd much rather have used my chubbier ones, but then the piles would be chubbier and, well, they're round, so they would mingle, and then you have to get into the fighting of how to stop them mingling, which is considerably harder than it should be. So I don't know, I definitely am not happy with the spangles. The spangles are driving me nuts because the spangles don't seem to... I think part of the problem is that the spangles are... So I'm trying to work out which one to make longer. Let's make this one longer. There we go, that's better. The spangles, the problem is because I haven't done enough, it's not held still. So every time I move this one, that one moves, and I can't... Anyway, so if I do this with it, this moves slightly. But the spangles do this and flip underneath, and that's really annoying. And I just could do without that. Really, really could. Really, really could do without the whole... Hang on. Where am I at? I seem to have got a bit confused somewhere. Hang on. I need to undo you and go back here because I didn't pin you. Which is probably... Oh, you. What the hell was I doing? See, this is what comes of talking and trying to work and... So, you need to be pinned. Let's pin you. Your 2 pins. That's why I thought you felt fat. Stick you there. The problem is these are so fine that you can actually put 2 pins in a hole and get away with it. There we go. Carried away with myself then. I swear I need binoculars to look at the actual work portion because it's got to be nearly 24 inches away. It's very difficult to see what's going on with tiny threads and stupidly thin bins and all of the rest of these things in life. So... I'm also glad to see that last week we had a couple of bot people, spam, idiot, moron, nasty, people we don't need in my channel. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm kind of sad that there isn't like 100 people sitting there all going, hey my god, what are you doing? Oh, this looks really interesting, tell me more about it. And but at the same time I'm kind of glad they're not because, I'm a bit scared of that. But at the same time, I'd rather have 2 people and no bots or spammers than 5 spammers and no people. So, it is, but last week we had, I think I banned 4 people, I think it was 5 people in the end last week, But this week, I'm very glad to say, rather than having... it now shows up with the moderation tools in my chat. So I can... So, for example, next to Sugar Bear's name there, I can see... there are some icons, and if I hover over them, I've got delete the message, warn Sugar Bear for being naughty, time out Sugar Bear for being naughty, and ban Sugar Bear for being naughty. So I now get the opportunity to click and be gone, whereas before I had to copy and paste the name, type /ban it and paste, and generally, obviously, I wanted to report them as well, so I then had to click on their name, click on something else, then find the excuse, then I've got buttons. It's a bit like I've got pockets. It's almost as good because I can now actually see to, I have the tools much more to hand, which is a good thing. So, that makes my life a whole lot easier, and I don't know why it didn't happen before, because apparently it's all supposed to be, hey, well, if you've got moderator rights, it always appears. No, it doesn't. But I managed to find a way. I either in the pokings around I did, because I was wondering about giving someone mod rights to give me a hand with that, because obviously if I'm here pokey with bobbins, both of my hands are somewhat spoken for, and so clicking and poking and typing and is something that would be helpful if I didn't have to stop and do. But as a one-man band and clearly only got a few of you, as I say, it's not like there's thousands of you or whatever, and so a moderator shouldn't be the most essential thing in the world, so we can warm up to that later. But yes, so shortly we get to change stitches. Oh my god, we are mere rows away from changing stitches. I don't know how far I'll get to do today. It's because it is a new pattern and these spangles are driving me insane, and the pins are infinitely small. It's not like I can go, hey, it'll take me 4 hours to make a side, because no, it takes longer than that. But it's one of those weird things, is a lot of this does not take a lot of time. If you think of how much of the stitch, the time per stitch, over half of it is getting a pin, shoving it in, moving the bobbins around. The actual stitch portion of it, it's not a lot. And that is one of the downsides of this type of lace. Now, ideally, as mentioned before, I would find myself a 30-inch kind of long bolster cushion. By the way, I've also upgraded what my pillow sits on. So underneath it, the table that it sits on, to give the table a bit more stability, there's a small sheet of MDF, and on top of that, there is a cutting board. Why is there a cutting board, Liz? So that if you see round the pillow, you don't see so much of the state of my floor. Let's truly be honest, that is a thing. So, to protect the disgustingness of my floor carpet, because it's a stupid colour carpet and shows every tiny bit of grime, for 40 miles, I bought myself an A2 cutting board, because they're quite cheap, and I have stuck that on top. I was going to glue it, but we would, thanks to Amazon, give them a small round of applause. They delivered me my 500 mils of PVA glue, which frankly is great, because if you hate it, you wash it and it all comes off. Yeah, it all arrived. Man didn't knock on the door, usual Amazon kind of ninja delivery where you know it's here because the dogs have gone nuts and you've seen the van. So you go outside and you get it, but other than that, he never knocked on the door, even if it says handed to residents. It was abandoned in, somewhere in your front garden stroke, porch, and you go and get it. And there were about 6 parcels today, so there were some vitamin pills, because, well, I don't go outside, so vitamin pills are a thing. There was... What else did I get? I got... She's just looking around. I got the glue. I got... I'd have to look it up on my phone. Vitamin pills. Oh, I bought some more shampoo because, well, Save's getting it. It's cheaper off Amazon than the one I want's cheaper off Amazon anyway. So bought that. It was part of useless little crap stuff. It was nothing exciting. Anyway, opened my parcels one by one, as you do, and there's all my stuff. Great. Yep. Thank you for that, Amy. The world needed that, did they? The last one I owned, because you can tell sometimes by the weight what's what, was my glue. And I had a couple of things I wanted to glue, and could I find my PVA glue? Could I, heck? So I had ordered some more from Amazon, which is quite weird, because much as I am not the tidiest person in the world, I do know usually where everything is. And I know I had it recently, but I do think that the certain fairy objects of my house who do so love to clear off my coffee table. Now, obviously, glue on the coffee table is not necessarily where you might keep your glue, but as I don't use it as a coffee table, it is just more of an open plan storage. Normally, there are things like my backup hard disks there. I've usually got, well, my guillotines over there. I've got, it's a bit clear at the moment. Oh, some eye drops, it's got some random things on it. Anyway, they have a habit of clearing it off on the off chance that there was something with food on it, which is generally never true. So I'm not quite sure what the obsession with it is, but they love to, because it's not right next to my couch. There's a good 70 centimetres between my couch and the coffee table, where there are boxes of crafting stuff, some books, as in notebooks to write notes in. There is a box of things such as the dog nail clippers. If you ever want to get rid of my dogs, just hold on to the nail clippers. There will be no dog in the room within milliseconds. It is the most quickest vacating of a room you will ever see. There's like some moisturiser and a nail file and some other stuff. And they have a habit of jettisoning the box with that in, which is an open box, over the contents of the floor, and incurring the wrath of Liz. Because, well, they've broken the box. It's now held together with a piece of tape that I made, because I didn't have any tape. I now have some tape. I bought some off Amazon. That was the other thing that came today. I bought some ribbon off Amazon to use for things, because it was cheap. And I've got my printer and my laminator, and don't ask, a toilet cleaner. Not used for that purpose, which is why it's here. And I've got some COVID tests and a power pack for plugging in my plugs. But they leap over this gap. And then, of course, because I had a tablecloth, it wasn't a tablecloth. I used it as a tablecloth. It was a double long tea towel, folded in half, that I used as a tablecloth because I didn't want to damage the wood underneath. Because it's proper wooden, rather than, MDF fake stuff. It is actually wooden. So rather than putting stuff on it, I made this, I wove a tea towel made out of 8/4 cotton and nice and thick, folded it in half and put it on top. Works really well. Except, of course, 20-something kilo of dog feeling the need to leap to put its paws on it, it makes a really good skid pan. And everything that was on that gets jettisoned. And behind it is... how do I explain this? I call it my shit pile. It's not actually got shit in it. There is literally no shit or food product or anything of the sort in there. There is not even an old biscuit crumb in there. It's the I need to tidy this but haven't yet pile. It's getting a bit big. Now, I did do a little bit towards it today. As I say, I've been really busy this week. I took a load of the Amazon box. Well, I took a number. I won't say a load because, well, it doesn't look to have made a lot of difference. But believe me, it was quite a big pile. I took a pile of Amazon boxes and crunched them all down and put them out for recycling this week. So, it is distinctly smaller than it was. And, of course, today I've got enough boxes to remake the pile. So, that's why my pile is well, the problem that it is because as soon as I do anything to it, well, I just kind of top it back up. So, but yes, so my the problem is that they then jettison stuff into the shit pile. So I can't just say it's a pile of recycling stroke, stuff to get rid of or stuff to put in the garage because you'll never use it, because in there can be really valuable things that you wanted to use but now can't find. And I do have a cunning suspicion that the glue was one of the many things that took a hit, and being quite a heavy thing has probably leapt considerably into the shit pile and then sunk. And so couldn't find my PVA glue, which is quite a distinctive bottle. It's white with a blue cap, because I know these things. So I ordered a new one from Amazon. And as I say, it arrived. Opened it up. The box, cardboard foldery box thing that we all get many things from Amazon in, was in reasonable nick. I mean, it wasn't A1 because, of course, they'd put stuff in it. But, it didn't look like it had fought a war. It was not ripped. It was not particularly damaged. But the wafer-thin, semi-hard, that crinkly plastic, not the soft malleable plastic, but the crinkly plastic that some things came in. Well, this came in a semi-crinkly, semi-sealed, but not very well sealed pouch. And at the top, where there was a nozzle for one's easy distribution of the glue in the bottle, which I have used many times before on the bottle I can't find, it'd been snapped off and glue was leaking everywhere. Now, fortunately, the glue pot was in a bag of its own and it had only leaked into the bag. But my glue pot, wasn't really usable because part of the glue had gone hard, part of the glue's frigging everywhere, it's all over the place, I'm now covered in glue, And so I went to Amazon and it was like, hey, this is damaged, I want a refund because I can't use, I can get some glue out of it, but, it's not really going to be a long-term project usable item anymore. It's going to be one hit, chuck it in the bin, because it will have gone hard by the time I come round to the next one. And of course, as we all know, like practically everything these days, you have to fight the AI bot. And that AI bot is worse than the nastiest bouncer in town, right? The AI bot is absolutely determined that you will pick one of its many given options, and that the people that are potentially beyond, gated by the bot are not to be disturbed. So I had a heck of a job because, of course, I want to, I need a refund for this item. This item is damaged, but the packaging is not particularly, because it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't, because the glue was splattered all over the inside of this packaging. But the actual outside of the Amazon packaging, which is the wording, it was the outer packaging damaged. No, not visibly. Oh, and you need to return it. I am not sending, 500 millilitres of glue-ish through the post, kind of poured into an envelope. No. And so, trying to get hold of a person, oh my goodness. You'd have thought I wanted to do something crazy. You really would. You really would have thought that I was trying to do something terribly criminal. However, thank you to the wonderful Sagar, who, finally I managed to get hold of human, Sagar, and I explained to Sagar that, your automated crap wants me to return this. I don't fancy putting 500ml of glue in the post. Loose, kind of thing. And bless him, he had a bit of a sense of humour. He was very understanding in my... What am I doing? Idiot. I need to put the bobbins on. Stupid cow. And he was very understanding of my reluctance to send, loose liquid in the post that would have set and leaked everywhere. And so he has kindly arranged for a refund. Oh, look. Both these bobbins have undone. Thanks for that, bobbins. So, yes, with any luck, I will be able to order a new pot of glue. And, of course, I did manage to use the glue for the immediate requirement I had, which was the pillow that I was using last week and the first week, which was my cooler lid. I decided I wanted to glue a couple more Amazon flat pack parcel holders onto the back so that it had a bit more stability, and then I was going to glue a bigger one as the base just to kind of round it off a bit. Maybe. Haven't done the big one yet, but have added some more flat pack folder things to it so that the base has a bit more beef to it, so that when it's on a flat surface, it's now more flat, whereas originally, while I beefed up, because the inside of the container, obviously it's a rectangle, but if you flip it over, there's obviously like a lip round the edge and a sunken inside, and so I was padding out more of the sunken inside to make it more flat, so that should there be weight on it, because I swear the dog's going to stand on it, should there be weight on it, etc., it has a little bit more protection, because I really like it. I'm really attached to my cheapest cushion. I really am. I really do quite like it, so I want it to have the best life it can have, and that obviously means making sure that it can take care of itself. So that's what I was doing with that. I also want to glue, because if I move this sideways a bit, there's the cutting board. Oh look, and an Amazon mat. But the idea being that I glue the cutting board to the MDF board underneath, so that that's secure and doesn't move, because at the moment they do wobble around a little bit. So I shall be doing that at some point, but I'm not with the glue bottle that came today, because, well, I needed it this afternoon and I couldn't put weights on it to hold it still and dry and use it, so that was a thing. The other good thing that came this morning was I had power cuts on Monday. As many of you are well aware, the Americans have had Hurricane Helena. Over here in England, we have had rain. Now, we're used to some rain. I mean, it's England. Most days it seems to rain. We have cold rain and warm rain, and that seems to be mainly our seasons. But we've had quite a bit of rain in the last couple of weeks. The end of this week's been better, to be fair. But last week, as you may recall, I was a little bit... Oh, look, you've come undone. I was a little bit concerned because there were thunderstorms and the like. And quite rightly so, because on Monday, I had a 13.5 hour power cut. Well, actually, I had about a 12-hour power cut followed by a 90-minute power cut. But power cut it was, and it's a long time. For a girl who lives on electricity. Hi Elizabeth, how you doing? You're at your loom again today. What are you making? I meant to ask you. You have to send me a picture of what you're making. So yeah, I was a bit scared of the thunderstorms last week, and 13.5 hours of power cut. Now, admittedly, the last 90 minutes was 4 o'clock in the morning, and so I just went back to sleep. But the during the daytime one, it started at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because for some reason in the UK, all power cuts seem to start on the hour. I don't know how they do it, but they seem to mysteriously always cut power up on the clock. Even though, we don't know what caused it. Well, it feels a little man-made when it slips off at exactly, as the clock ticks to 1 o'clock. And of course, 1 o'clock, I was in a work meeting. I was leading the meeting, in fact. Well, not anymore. And that was a tad frustrating because it was quite an important meeting, and I'd managed to pass over most of the information that I needed to do, but I also don't get much of a phone signal here. I have to piggyback my Wi-Fi to get phone signal, send text messages. So without electricity, I don't really have a phone either. Now, mostly, don't care, it's fine. But 1 o'clock in the afternoon till midnight when I went to bed is a long time. Now, I've got a gas hob, so I can go and make a cup of tea, I can boil some water, I can fry some food. So I was not dying of starvation and lying gasping on the floor like a goldfish, but mentally I did not know what to do with myself, because, well, lace making needs good lighting, not half a candle. Lace making, and of course I hadn't printed off my square, I hadn't pricked my square, so I could have pricked my square if I'd printed off my square, but I couldn't have laminated my square because, well, it was electronic, so I was kind of stuffed because I had not printed out my square and I had not laminated my square. And you just made beeping noises. That's always a worry. Made a beeping noise like something attaching. What are you doing, computer? You did naughty things last week, too. So, best part of 11, nearly 12 hours sitting staring at the walls. Well, I had some naps. Is it done yet? Is it done yet? Because my brain's pretty good at the, wow, this is boring. Okay, let's reassess. No, still boring. And it will do that. And then I can still have a good night's sleep. So I'm quite fortunate in that my brain saves me from the boredom by sending me to sleep. But 11 hours of it. 11 hours of it. And I didn't have a single book in the house to read. Now, it's not that I don't have books. I've got shelves of books. But they're all crafting recipe books, for want of a better explanation. In the sense of, I've got, as I think I said last week, like a 24-inch pile of books of lace making. But they're not really sit down and read the history lace books. They are, here is a pricking. Here is how to do a stitch. Go use. Yeah, well, I can't. I am not spending half an hour in the dark trying to trace a thing and in no light trying to stab holes and pins and wind bobbins. No. I had no reading books. So, straight on to eBay when power allowed to order good old Harry Potter. Now, I'm a bit of a pothead, thank you, and when it comes to Harry Potter, while I don't read per se, and I say this carefully, I have read many books, but I have not necessarily used my eyes to read the books. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I always did as a kid. Dyslexia wins, right? So even as a kid, I listened to Tom Brown's To All Days. I did Wind in the Willows. I did lots of good books, but I never read them. I had them read to me. And I continue this to this day. So every night I go to bed and I talk to Bitchface, aka Alexa, who we don't talk to too much because she kicks in and starts asking questions. And it's like, Bitchface, let's get ready for bed. So she turns all the lights off downstairs and puts the hallway on and the landing so I can make it upstairs without killing myself. Then when I get into bed, it's settled down, so it turns everything, all the hallway stuff off and leaves just the bedroom on. So I can, shower and do all those kind of things. And then we have sleep time. Sleep time turns all the lights off, obviously, because that's kind of what you'd expect, and reads me 20 minutes of my current audiobook. Now, obviously, when it starts up, if my brain goes, what the heck is going on? What are you talking about? I can say go previous chapter, I can roll it back. Well, I can roll it back 40 minutes if I don't remember anything of the day before and the day before that. So I can roll back a bit, but it reads me the next 20 minutes of my book. By which time, quite often, I'm asleep. Now, if I'm not asleep, I have the command more, and it'll read 20 more minutes of it. Now, I could use the same command, but I felt that trying to turn off the same lights and, just wasted time and effort. And so all I needed it to do was more. And of course, I can do that down here because I can say to her, more, and she will read me 20 minutes of my book. So it is quite a practical thing without turning all the lights off. So it will just read me 20 more minutes of my book. So I do that quite a lot. If I can't sleep, I get through quite a few mores. And if I can sleep, well, I've already slept through it, it's not a problem. And of course, now I've done that special knot, you're going to be awkward, aren't you? Yes. Okay. Let's pull that up a bit. Where are we at? We now need to do that. And so, yes, I rely quite heavily on electricity, because, well, I do. So not having any was really painful. Because it is inevitable. It's like anything. Should the internet go down? So you've got electricity, you've got plenty of other things. But the moment the internet goes down, I'll just Google. I'll just do that thing on YouTube. I'll just enter my holiday for work. Of course, you can do none of these things because you've got no internet. And the more you don't, the more you don't have it, the more things you want it for. And electricity is exactly the same. The less electricity you've got, the more you think of things. Well, I could hoover the house. No, you can't. You haven't got any electricity. Oh, I could, do some lace making. Not without lights, not without a pattern, not without winding your bobbins. And so it becomes that kind of never-ending cycle of, but I want to do X and I can't, and it drags you down. By the way, you may have noticed we've got to the bit where we need to change stitches. Huzzah! So let me push these to the side because we won't be needing most of these for a while. So this is why I hate so many bobbins. I mean, we've literally done, I think it's 15 rows. Don't ask why I know that. I counted them at one point. So we've done 15 rows. So technically we have 16 pairs of bobbins because you start with 2. And already we have got half a mat. I think I worked out you need nearly 50 pairs of bobbins to do this square. It's not even a third of them. Hence the stacking kind of thoughts. So in fact, I am going to move you around just a bit more to make a bit more space nearer me. So I can work a bit more in the middle, because this is where one desires to work the most. Bobbins! By the way, I have finally emptied one of my safety pins. I need 2 more to go. So I did try and do most of the bobbins, or as many of the pairs of bobbins that I knew I would need to do this. Just because I knew I would need them anyway. It's not like I'll never use. I don't want to wind bobbins I'll never use. I know I will use them. So, but I wanted to try, because obviously what you don't need is, I've run out of bobbins and I spend, half an hour winding a pair of bobbins before I come back and, I can do the next one. I need more bobbins now, another half an hour winding bobbins. Because, that's really dull. I mean, I'm not convinced that this is the most exciting stream you've ever watched in your life, or listened to, and depending on what you're doing. Because as I said, I do a lot of the listening to streams, so I can't criticise that. But it is difficult to kind of concentrate and to kind of do all of that and not have power. It's not a thing. And I really can't see that hole. I know it's there. There it is. Right, you now go this way. Now, I was going to try something. Do I try the thing? Do I not try the thing? Do I try the thing? Do I not try the thing? Do I try the thing? So, pin placement. Let me explain this. Pin placement is a very important thing. Pin placement. So I could either place the pin here, so that the working pair is on the outside of the pin, and the non-working pairs are on the right-hand side of the pin, or I can put one of the non-working pairs, which hopefully is, allegedly, smooths off the edges a little more. Actually, I've done it wrong anyway, so let's undo that. Let's undo this one. Because, why is this wrong? Why is it wrong, Liz? Because you're not supposed to go that way first. You're supposed to go this way first. So, let's just stick with the traditional work holding pins. Because, well, let's do that. And then we go back for these two. And we pin that. I've been stabbed by a pin. There we go. You go. You can come out. And like that. And now we need another bobbin. And we need to get another safety pin. There we go. And of course they have made great friends with other bobbins. There we go. And one of the knots has come undone because of course, well, duh. Stupid knots. Never mind. Stupid knots it is. I used my pin. Tragedy. So the pin that should have gone there, I used somewhere else, and then might. Backwards feeling pin, please. And then. And now another pin. Stabbing little pins into holes does seem to be 99% of the time of making lace. It really, really does. And there's nothing technically wrong with that, but yeah, it does get to you a bit. So, it's going to be a long time, I think, before I need the next bin. Why do you not want to go in this hole? I know there is a hole there. Thank you. I know there is a hole because I held it up to the light and checked. There are also some marks where, like here, the little black dots are missing. I still put the holes in. because I know that there are supposed to be holes there, so I did all of that. Beads come off. See, this is exactly what I said about these, wasn't it? That these would come off. Useless pile of doo-doo. And now there are beads everywhere. This is why I hate spangles. Absolutely why I hate spangles. Because it's exploded and I don't have any wire to put spangle back together. I could probably use a pin or two, but or some I've got some thread, I suppose, but don't really want to do that. Oh well, spangleless it is. It's not going to kill anybody. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. Okay. Why am I counting them? Because it matters. When working like this, you pick up from one side and you stop using on the other side. So you have to be aware of how many the remains of my spangle. Actually, it's just come undone. I could possibly resurrect that, but not without tweezers and sticking my nose on the end of it. So yeah, it is. So this pair, they came in at this corner, but that's it. That's all they did. For now. I mean, it will work further down the pan, but right here, right now, these are done. That's it. Not using those for a while until we get to making the rose grounds in the next section. It's irrelevant now. We work across. I will be working across this solid bit, and then either starting the rose ground or start doing the ground there, and then doing that bit, and then doing the rose ground. I can't do that bit, but I can do some of that bit. You see, I can, but I can't. So I can do this bit, or I could do a little bit of this bit, but I can't do too much because it depends what feeds what. So if I pick this dot here, this dot feeds that dot and the one below it. So I cannot work this dot until I've done that dot. So some dots you can't do until feeding dots have done. It's, a list of dependencies. And I can work all the way down here because they're being fed by these ones, which we've already worked. And the two pins, the two pins, the top one and the second one, that were the starting point, they will get discarded pretty early on. But you discard, then you can do the rose grounds that then feed this bit, so you do that bit next, which then feeds that bit. So it's not always as simple as do the easy bit, do a harder bit, do the worst bit. But at the same time, I can not work in a diagonal. I can technically work it flat. Now, it gets more complicated because instead of doing the dots diagonally where you take these two pairs and then to those two pairs and then those two pairs and then those two pairs as you work across, you end up doing, say, these two pairs, then these two pairs, because you're not relying on them previously, so each dot then becomes almost independent of which other ones you've done on that line, so they're not feeding into it, but it also makes your brain hurt when you do some of the stitches trying to work sideways and not doing complete stitches. So you wouldn't, if you did this in a normal manner, you'd do like one rose ground, then the next rose ground, or that rose ground, that rose ground, that rose ground, that one, that one, that one. You could diagonally do that, or diagonally this way, or you do have some choices, but you would struggle, because if you try to do that as a row, so you do like the first stitch and then go off and do some other things, come back, try and do the next two bits, and you've forgotten which bits you've done, which bits you've not done, because rose ground's a bit like that. And so it is not a plan, and I can't see where my workers are. I think you're here. Yeah, I think you're here. So, back we go. Now, there is a way of cheating when doing cloth stitch, which is the over and under, and just working through each of the bobbins you need to do to get to the other end. Instead of making 3 moves for everything, you can just go over, under, over, under, over, under, dun, dun, and appear out the other end, because that's all you're actually achieving. It is a lot quicker, and it's good when you're doing it en masse, because, as I say, you're doing it en masse, so it helps to have a little bit of a, not a cheat, but, you know, if you imagine, if you're doing from side to side all the way across, well, do you really want to do 3 per pair, or do you want to do, well, over, under, done, moved on? You know, it's because that's all you're actually doing. If you think about how this following stitch goes, so if you take these bobbins, I cross the 2 in the middle, so this brown one goes into the between these then go over the top, and this one moves over. So all that's really happened is this went over one, under one, this one went under one, over one, and they had to act accordingly. So why not just do over and under? So if I go back to what I was doing with it before, if I undo this, which means I have to uncross them in the right manner, all you do is you cross the first one so that they're now one apart, then both go over and both would go under, and it all works out. It's really quite cool. Let's finish that one off. So, actually, I don't think that's right now. Can't see where I got to. Hang on. Tiny threads, tiny threads, tiny, tiny, tiny. Where are we at? Right, back where we started. So, go back. Which is why this makes this so much easier, because you then don't get tangled up, because you know that if you get to a point and its last move is not, you know, the third one over the second one, you're stuffed up. Which is perfectly good. So this one is a slightly thinner thread than the one I used to make the original square that is on the beginning of the stream. Why is that, Liz? Well, don't need you no more. It was a bit too tight, and this is going to be a neck curtain, so I wanted this to be slightly looser, a bit more transparent, a bit more dainty, for want of a better word. Although the thicker thread, obviously, the thicker the thread, the stronger it is. So again, this is part of the joy of doing our sample, or potentially a sample or whole square, depending on how well we think it goes. Because at the end of it, we can look at it, and even though it will be pinned down, we can decide whether we are happy or not. As I said, there is a really high probability right now that I'm going to go, love it, absolutely great, but I am not working with these bobbins and slinging the whole, you know, chopping it off, keeping the quarter because I would, but slinging out, even though I put enough cotton on to do the whole square, because I am not making a whole square with these wretched spangles. That is not going to be a plan. So, we shall not be doing that. So that will definitely not be a thing. And be needing that. Life be too short. You see, now you haven't got a spangle, you roll. This is the only good, as I said, this was the main cause of trying it with spangles, was to stop the roll. I know what I can do. I can take what was left of the spangle for now and try and twist them together enough so that there is some. I need to move bobbins down a little bit, with the beads down a little bit, so that I can twisty the thing. There you go. Now it's a very small spangle, in fact quite a practical spangle, and I twist these already. Yes, I possibly did. And back we go. Yeah. See, I knew spangles was a bad idea. I knew they were going to be awkward. I really, really did. And I was right, because I was. And as I say, we're not even a third of the way through it, and I'm already annoyed with spangles. In part because the spangle broke. And I do have pliers, actually. One of the many things in my little box of keepy sakey things is, or was, a pair of pliers. She says now, looking, and I think they escaped. They did. When somebody knocked it earlier, hello, waking Mr. Paws. Pliers. Let me see if I can. See, I want to try and put the spangle back together a bit more. I want to kind of even it out and make it look pretty. And there's a big part of me screaming, why? You hate spangles. Why do you want to do that? Because obviously, where is it gone? There it is. Let's see if we can do something there. We've got some pliers. And twisty. No, I want to be together. No, I love it. Rubbish. So, let's see what we can do. Because this is just mayhem. So let's see what I've got another dark one, but then that side's really long. I assume I have other beads that I know I pulled quite a few beads into my junk pile of bobbins, and there was a couple of little ones, but I don't remember a big one. It's probably on the floor. So let's put. Yeah, I know I was not going to do this. Sorry. Well, tiniest stupid bead on, and then the metally looking one, and then another tiny, can't see the hole in it, tiny one, and the bigger kind of ugly, cheap 70s looking. I had tons of these when I was a kid. I had quite a big bead collection as a kid. And I can tell you now, I have no idea why, because I didn't. All I ever did with them was go pretty and then ignore them. So, let's poke that through the hole. You see, they just don't fit, really. Ah! Oh no, it landed in my jumper. One made a bid for freedom. I don't blame it, of course, but what I really need is some jewellery wire, of course, but I'm not buying jewellery wire. Repeat after me, I am not buying jewellery wire. Do not need it. Right. So half the problem is I think the wire might have snapped. which is why it now doesn't really fit. So let's take you off there to make it symmetrical. Because it's not symmetrical. And poke the long one through the hole. It's not straight enough to go through the hole, of course. That'd be too freaking easy. Through the hole. And then, while trying to hold them in a very non-helpful manner, because it's pushing the bead off. Come back, little escaping blighter. Jesus Christ, this is why I'm not patient. This is not a thing. This is not a thing. Right. I want to get the two ends together and start twisting to try and pin you two together. There we go. Pinny, pinny, pinny. Screw. There we go. We've got a... That's a bit better. Now we can all feel a little better that it looks like it did a bit at the beginning. Small detour. I'm going to have a sip of Coke. Weaving tea towels. Favourite things to weave. Yeah, I'm a tea towel girl. I've made more tea towels than I want to admit. I do love making tea towels. Tea towels are good. I primarily make 8x4 cotton tea towels, and I make them a bit big, so they're like 32 inches long and about 28 to 32 inches wide. So they're more of tea sheets, really. But everybody loves them because you can get a good handful, say, on a saucepan handle and still have plenty to reach round and all the way around the saucepan. So they have been significantly hit, and they absorb, because they're 8x4 cotton, they absorb one heck of a lot of water. And I had a pipe burst. Well, I knew that this was coming. So, as always, Liz had a little bit of foresight, and I'm a practical girl. I could have changed the tap on my kitchen myself. Really could. You know, it's undo this. You know, stop the water. Undo this. You know, kind of screw in the new one. Make sure it's all well sealed. Oh, I didn't need these two. Okay. And, you know, so technically, could have done it myself. Really could. I know how to. I was just a little hesitant to do it. And because I know that it has not been changed since the house was built. And it's not a very old house. It was built in 2007. But by being the original, put in by builders who are paid minimum of builder wage, which is still pretty good wages over here, but paid minimum builder wage, that care and attention were not two words that came into the description. As a result of this, it means that budget, everything's bodged. None of the walls are straight. None, you know, if you stand at the front of my house, I've got 3 windows in this room, a window, 2 windows in, is it 2 or 1? I think it's 1 window in the downstairs toilet, and kind of 2 window panes in a little study cupboard type place at the end of the house. They're not all level. They're not on the same row of bricks. Who, in the name of sanity, felt this was a thing? And so, and then when you sit on the downstairs loo, I will not encourage you round to do so, but if you sit on my downstairs toilet, pretty much your knees are not quite, but, you know, all but knocking with the basin in front of you. And the basin has a little pedestal. It's not straight. The pipes behind it aren't in the middle, hence it's not straight. So you're sitting there, and the pedestal is about, instead of being face onto you, it's got to be 10-15 degrees off. It's quite a lot. The tiles, as a splashback to the basin, aren't level. The little row of hook things that are on the wall that someone put there, I don't know whether they were original or not, are not level. The windowsill is not level. The radiator is not uniformly equally distanced from the wall. And you're sitting there going, I'm in a room that's like 6 foot by 4 foot or what it was. I don't even think it's 4 foot wide. It's probably 6 foot by 3 feet. You know, because you kind of, if you sat with your elbows out, you'd be banging the walls. And there are so many imperfections, and I've only sat in one room. And it's one of those things, I don't have OCD, because I really don't. If you see the state of the room I'm in, you would truly understand. I do not have OCD. But like everything, once you've seen it, you can't not see it. And so I cannot, and bear in mind, you know, I drink a fair bit, and due to having my bowel surgery, I tend to go to the toilet a fair bit. I spend a fair bit of time in this room. And every time I go in there, it winds me up just a little bit more. And it's really hard, because you're sitting there going, I'm surrounded by things that aren't right. The door's not central, the lock was put in funny, it's been kind of done twice. And you're sitting there going, it's a tiny room, what have they done to the rest of it? And of course, at least with bigger rooms, you can't necessarily tell that the walls aren't parallel, or that, you know, maybe the ceiling wonks to one corner quite so easily. But you just know. You just have this. But as I say, when you're on the outside, and, I know, let's say the bricks, there are like 10 rows of bricks below the window in my main room. There's 11 when it comes to the toilet, and then 9 when it comes to this, and you're like, you couldn't have just picked a layer of brick, put the windows on, and kept going, could you? No. And it is quite painful to behold, to be honest, because, well, it's just so unnecessary. It really is. That doesn't feel right. Come back. Why don't you feel right? See, I can't see these threads at all. You're an over. So you should have been an over. You're an under. You're an over. So you just feel like a big knot. Let's try this again, children. So, get to the end and discard at the end, and not trying to do it before. And the spangles make doing this so much harder, because they don't just roll. Right. Get to the end of you. You two go up there. I now need 2 more of you. You could do with being a bit longer. Oh, nice to see you though, Elizabeth. Please come back next time. It's nice to have someone to talk to. I know obviously I had Sugar Bear earlier, but it's been good to talk to you, and it's been nice to have you there, and I can almost hear you weaving in the background. It is quite pleasant to be crafting amongst friends. So I shall see you next time. This sofa is getting distinctly less and less comfortable. The padding on it is less than ideal, but it is also an old sofa, so it's not like it's, you know, criminal that it's dead already or anything. It's allowed. Right. Do. I hope you don't have to see too much of my head when I lean forward to squint at something, but I'm sure you see more than you need. I shall have to look at the video afterwards. I shall have to ask Elizabeth if it was less stuttery this week. Get rid of you two. Still two of you. Put in a bin. Don't try and these spangles are annoying. Nearly at the corner. See, we're doing all right, really. Doing fairly well on the whole progression front. It's not too bad. This doesn't feel right. I feel like I've got the wrong bobbins. Pretty sure I don't remember you being green. But it doesn't overly matter. Maybe you were and I just wasn't paying attention. Because that can be a thing. 2 more bobbins. And 2 out. See, it feels like I missed a hole. I didn't. I missed a hole. So I'm going to creep up a hole. That's a bit better. Here we go. Oh dear. See, how did I know I was missing a hole? Because I was looking at the fact that there seemed to be too long a gap between the last 2 pins on this side. So either I'd done something stupid, or I'd missed a hole. And the answer was, I missed a hole. So I could carefully lift up 1 pin. If I'd moved on a lot of pins more, you can sometimes still shuffle them up. But you have to be very careful, because obviously there isn't necessarily the spare thread to do so. Whereas because I hadn't even pinned down this side, no additional stitches, no changes of directions had happened to the worker pair, I could just move the pin, and any extra thread that was needed to stretch the additional distance, or not, as the case may be, could all be worked out by just tensioning my worker pair afterwards. So I do like how this looks, although I will say with my eyesight from here it's blurry and small. To be honest, what I would normally do at this point is get my camera out, take a photo of it and see what it looks like. That's a good way, because of course the pins are in the way. You have the best view of all, which is the top down view, although I know it's not quite straight. Yeah, whatever. It's not quite straight, but it's close enough. So you have the best view of how it's looking, and hopefully this is reasonably dense, but not, like it was on the last one, which was too dense, which meant it puckered slightly. Now, as I say, it's not too obvious on camera or otherwise, because the puckering being white with a bright light just tends to burn out. But hopefully this certainly looks to be flatter. It still looks to be reasonably dense, as in it's not like it's... supposed to be solid, but not solid. It's, you know, it looks like there is enough to check. So bear with me one moment. My brain cell does say I really need to check this. So I will do the obvious and take a photo of it at a reasonable distance and see what I get on my camera. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. Doesn't look too bad. Could be slightly nicer, and I think, you know, if I tension all of these properly, it'll tidy up a bit more. I'll work my way back. So I'm not unhappy with that. That looks kind of like I wanted it to, in that it's dense, but it's not too dense, but it's not too loose. So I picked the right density of thread. Now, but Liz, surely you knew. Well, the problem is you have to try it to find out. So what happened was obviously last time I made the square, I made a very, very similar pattern to this, as we all know. But the pattern was 2.41 millimeters diagonally. Now, this is not actually accurate. If I get my calipers out, this is not accurate. The distance between, say, that spot and that spot diagonally is not 2.41 millimeters. Nor is it on a more, say, side-to-side basis, or even the side-to-side basis. No, none of them are 2.41 millimeters. This one is 2.5. And the reason it's 2.5 was to make the pattern a bit bigger, and the thread is, I mean, obviously 0.09 millimeters is not a lot. But when you're talking tiny threads, it is actually, because I think this is 29 wraps per inch. So that means you can get 29 consecutive single strands of cotton in a row to the inch. That's it might even be a centimetre. I think it's a centimetre. So that's a lot. But therefore, if you multiply that out, if it's 27, therefore each one takes point. Actually, it's not 0.2, is it? It'll be 27 divided by 10 is 2.7. But that's not right. It's 10 divided by 27. So that's 0.389 or something. Anyway, so that 0.9 is just a little bit bigger. Now, this thread to the one I had to the one before it. So this is 40. Last time I used 30. So 30 was a bit bigger. But I think it's only like 2 wraps a centimetre less or something. So it's not a lot bigger, but it is bigger. So between going with marginally more wraps per inch and marginally more gap, it meant my pattern fitted the size I wanted, because bear in mind, last time it was 5.25 inches. This time we wanted it to be nearer 6, so that you only needed 3 to make across the window. So I wanted the pattern to be just a little bit bigger, which is where I got the calculation from. And obviously the thread being slightly thinner really has counteracted the over density of the cloth stitch part of it. It will mean that some areas look a little bit different when we come to do rose ground, and they will not look as solid as perhaps maybe they could have done. But all those little green samples I was working on were with the same size thread as this. And someone asked me recently, what thread are you going to use? And this is Finkerbolius thread in size number 40. Previously we used 30. The green stuff was the same stuff, just, well, kind of the colour of this paper, which is why that could be a problem. Because it's bad enough seeing white ones, let alone seeing the same colour on it. So it was, I mean, I don't really want a green lace curtain anyway. I wanted white, or at least white, marginally off-white, or beige, because everything in my house is beige. And I kind of wanted to do linen, because linen is a really good thread for houseware. So tablecloths, if in olden days your sheets would have been linen, your tablecloths, which is why back in the day they always said girls had linen for wedding presents. It wasn't here's 50 bolts of linen fabric. It was, here is your linen, it is your bed sheet, it is your tablecloth, it is, because they take hardware and they actually improve over time, which is why things back then lasted. Linen starts off a little bit stiff and awkward, but the more you use and abuse it, the softer it gets, which makes it also good for tablecloths, for tea towels, because it is also quite absorbent. But weaving with linen is painful. You have to keep it wet, in essence. Now, my brain went to that when thinking of making lace bobbin work, because of course, unlike weaving where half the threads stay still and one lot go side to side, in essence, with lace making you have the side to side, which is usually your worker, but you also have movable warp threads so that they can mingle and create the different stitches and the holes and things. And if they don't like staying straight, well, are they going to react to being messed around with? So I decided that linen was probably not my best choice at this point, and I decided to stick with cotton. In part, it's a bit cheaper. Not a lot, to be honest. I did find a very similarly priced linen, but it was kind of grey-brown and it looked like it needed a wash. So, don't really need lace curtains that look like they need a wash even when they don't. It's going to be bad enough when they do. And of course, this is the other problem with this thing. One day I'm going to have to wash it. That's not... I mean, because what you don't want is to spend all this time making a beautiful net curtain, be really, really proud of it, and then have to put it in the wash because it looks dirty or whatever, and for it all to fall apart. So we are very much hedging our bets and sticking with cotton, just because it's far more readily available, for much more range of colours, ranges of size of thread. So if I really decide at the end of this, I need the fatter thread, I'm just not happy with how this turns out, because to be honest, I've already decided that we're only doing a quarter of this. Not because I don't like it, I haven't decided whether it's going to be the one. It's like boyfriends. There's nothing wrong with it right now. I'm more than happy with it. But do I want to commit to this for the rest of my existence? Maybe not. So we need to get to the end of my quarter, or at least an eighth, and stop kind of around this point so that we can get an idea of what the whole square would look like. And then I need to get away from spangles. Desperately need to get away from spangles. Just looking at them is making me almost itch. And we must be a quarter... We're not even a third of the way in, but we must be about a quarter of the way through now. I could count them. I'm not going to. If that's 15... Yeah, that's just over 15. So, yeah, we must be nearly a third of the way through. Maybe we've probably done a quarter. We're heading for the third now. It's painful. It is truly painful. I'm not enjoying the spangles. I mean, they're staying still, so from that point of view, hi Yami, nice to see you. Thank you for joining. I should say like and subscribe and do all of those kind of things, but I'm not going to force you to do that. So yes, I have definitely decided that we will not be making the whole square because these spangles need to go. Kill the spangles, death to spangles. And I know lots of people love spangles, and they really do. They properly love their spangles. I do not love spangles. I do not. I definitely do not love spangles. Oh, they make doing this, which is my cheats kind of cloth stitch, awkward. One's already exploding, and we're barely into it. So the whole kind of shebang is just not a plan, and it just, even unwinding stuff on the bobbins, the spangles smacking my hand and getting in the way, and I just don't need it. Really don't need it. So that needs to go. We need to not be using spangles. So question is, I'm now at the corner. What do I do next? So the way it works, as you can see, as a primary direction, you work in a diagonal in this kind of angle. But you don't have to, because as I said, as long as you've got done the pins that feed the pin that you need, you can do the pin. So, for example, I could, right here, right now, do these 3 pins. And then once I've done those, well, I could do that pin, because that pin will have fed it, and I could do the next wrap pin. So I can, to an extent, but what I can't do is go much further than this pin here, because I need to have done this pin, which feeds that pin, which feeds that pin. Yeah, this is where it all goes wrong. So really, we now need to start the rose grounds, and that means more bobbins. And yeah, where am I at? I need to come back. So now, one thing that can be very confusing at this point is, if I look at these two, these come off this pin. Now, the ones that would come off that pin don't, because they're automatically used again, because it's the inside of the turn. And I don't know where you came from. And so, but I do need to discard these two, because they came in and immediately leave. It's complicated. Oh dear. I need a drink of Coke. That's what I need. Definitely need a drink of Coke. 2.5 hours we've been doing this. To be honest, you look at it and go, I've been doing this 2.5 hours and all we've done is that. But it does look neat and tidy. That's always a good thing. We like neat and tidy. We have covered other things. We have mended my spangle. We have sworn at the dog for being dog. So it's, of course you've come undone now, haven't you? I marginally undo you and you go for it. Let's do the other knot then. There you go. You can have that knot, which makes you really awkward to undo now and do back up. There we go. Because you're a bit long now, aren't you? So you have a bit more. There you go. Undo you just a tiny bit because you're a bit short. You're a bit short. Maybe a little bit more. So you can be quite accurate with lengthening bobbins, so there's no reason for them to be too far out, but at the same time, sanity. You don't want to be spending too much time, getting the millimetre perfect. You just want them to be close, because it makes the whole swapping over, because if they're really different, you've got string versus bobbin at some point, or air versus bobbin. So, do I come back to the middle? You're not needed. Where are you? No, you're not needed for the rose grounds. It doesn't actually actually matter. So we will do it. We shall do it because we shall. Okay, so. Ovary, undery, ovary. And, over. To the middle, pin. If you're still there, Yami, where are you from if that it's evening for you? Because for most people, especially Americans, it's probably even still morning. It's afternoon for me. It's 4:30 in the afternoon for me. So I wonder where you are that you are. It's evening for you. Mind you, that could just be Europe, so it's not the end of the world. So we don't need any of you lot now. Any of you lot now. None of these for a while because we've got to start some rose ground. So yeah. And more bobbins. Sigh. And as you may recall from last week, I do suffer terribly from brain farts, where I look at things and my brain goes, I'm sorry, what? And nothing makes sense, even when it does make sense. Like the tally last week, my brain did not want to do tallies, and so it didn't do tallies. It just sat there going, error, does not compute, sorry. Try harder, reinsert coin, game over. It was not impressed with tallies. Although, to be fair, the one we made in the end actually wasn't that bad. I mean, it was never going to win, best in show or anything, but it was a tally. It was recognisable as a tally. And to be honest, that's pretty good going, really. So, we need a bobbin. For some reason, I am completely incapable of lassoing pins. And that one doesn't want to sit straight. And I need you to be longer. You look to have more on you, but probably not. It doesn't say lassoed. And because pins being small and thin, they hide in amongst the dots, because they do. So, now, I've got to think about this, because I need another pair of bobbins. Why do you need another pair of bobbins, Liz? Well, rose grounds work with 2 pairs of bobbins from each side of the square, and at the moment I've only got 1, so I need another one to make the pair. They don't go on the same pin, obviously, so I'll need another pin. As if it had been completed from that square there. We can pop you there, and hopefully you won't come on. So, I need more room. I never have enough room, and bobbins are my nemesis. I know I need them. I know I really, really do. But bobbins just seem to be constantly in the way. So, I don't need any of you. I need you 2 and you 2. And you are not sitting flat, thank you. Right. So, rose ground. You join these 2 and these 2. You then do that one, these 2, that one, and then these 2, these 2. Did you get that? I'm more talking to myself than specifically expecting you guys to remember, because you don't have to. You're the ones watching. So, I get to join you two. Join you. Oh, actually, before I do these, and I now can't see how far I got. There we go. I need to twist you. And I decided 2 was a good plan. So, thing, middle one. The middle one's only a half stitch. To get the gain that I would like. Beanie. Half stitch. Half stitch. Half stitch. Freaking spangles. Half stitch. It would help, of course, if I could sit on my chair, because I'm being pushed off by dog. So my butt cheeks are clinging to the edge of this chair. Somewhat more frantically than they are comfortable with. And then the corners. Corners. And I've done you two, and you two are the next two. Oh, couch. It's a brown dog. It's a brown dog pushing me off this time. The black one's making sure I don't go further up the couch, and the brown dog's making sure I'm sitting on the edge of the couch, in the uncomfortable bit on the lip. And here is the thought of the day. Whether you are skinny, and I mean like, almost underfed skinny, or whether you're taking part in my 600-pound life, why is it, whenever you sit on something, it always feels like your butt bones instantly meet the solid edge of what you're sitting on? So if you sat on the floor, if you sat on a hard bench or a wall, why is it your butt bones always seem to be straight onto the hard surface, even if your backside has time zones of its very own? And I'm not a skinny person. I'm not a my 600-pound lifer. But at the same time, I have some padding. There is definitely padding. More padding than, is not deemed medically reasonable, but it is kind of, we'd like you to be less padded by the medical profession. So why then, in it all, is it that this couch is really uncomfortable, even with a slight layer of foam, and it is only a slight layer of foam. But because I'm being pushed forward to the bit where the wooden edge is, my butt bone's right on the edge. Thanks, dog. Thanks for that. So we need to twist these twice. And join you together. Is quite uncomfortable, and it's like one of those things is once your body goes that's enough, it's kind of hard to counteract that. Come on, move, whoever's in the way, move, come on, don't give me that tone of look, move, both of you, come on, move, Amy, move, oh, being able to sit, of course I'm now further away from the cushion, But I'm now sitting on a bit that's not my butt bone. Oh, so much better. Don't... Guess who's moved straight back into right behind me? And he's sulking because there isn't the room that there was a minute ago because I've moved. Now, I should have moved the table slightly closer. I don't really want to move you because making sure everything that's the right distance is not an easy feat. Actually, there might be a way. Hang on. It's my box of bobbins from earlier. Let me grab this. No, that doesn't want to move. No, Amy! That was not encouragement for you to put your feet under my backside so that you could get closer and more underneath me. No, it was not. That was not the plan. I'll do. It's a bit further away than I'd like, though. Let's see if I can sit here. It's not very good. Sulk, sulk, sulk. Uncomfortable. Never mind. I'll have to move a few things next week. Or next time I stream, whichever comes first. Maybe swap the cushion with the other cushion. So it's got a little more pad to it. Pins that I stole earlier. Stupid spangles. Yeah, these spangles are a nightmare. Definitely not going to be keeping using spangles. Even if all I do is, when we get to the end of our decision and whether we like this or not, even if all I do is undo all this thread on the bobbin and wind it onto a different bobbin, I am not completing this square with these bobbins. That is not happening. No, sir. Definitely not. That is just definitely not a thing. So, you are dealt with. You now need your stitch. Turn your little square. And 4 more. See, there's clearly something wrong. How's something wrong? Well, where's the pair of bobbins that came off this pin back here? These bobbins come directly down following this line. So this pin should have a pair of bobbins. And it doesn't. We forgot. So, what we need to do is grab the bobbins that we used to make our work, knowing that these bobbins were the finished bobbins. So we untake this pin, stab, and undo. So over and then I have to squint a bit more to find the pin that's over there. That one. Tiny hairy pins. And the 2 bobbins that we took out are not those 2 bobbins. And this is when you discover they've all mated, even though they don't move around as much. So, you are a bobbin. This is a good bobbin. We like this. You are not. You wrapped around something you shouldn't be. You see? think we're all right actually. I think we just need to unscramble these a little. I think that's part of the problem. You can't see my head. I suppose that's good. Right, so those were the extra bobbies that we bought in. So you can go back up there. There's definitely nothing to this. And then we work backwards. This does not go backwards. No. Seriously, will you not sit back there, dog? It's not up. This is not going to plan. So, you... I just wish I could see the threads. They're just too tiny. And my eyesight is lacking. Possibly there, which I'm not quite sure how you didn't end up there. You need to be there, so that was a black one. Yes, that was a black one. Guessing Hosken, the problem with this little ring light thing, it gives great light and great heat. It doesn't seem hot. You know, if I touch it, it's quite cool to the touch. But somehow, being underneath it, it's like being in a microwave. It feels like it cooks you slightly. So let's come back to the saucer hole. We need to get over and under. We need to go down and over. Under and over. Two of you. You need to under and over. And you need to go untwist. And you need to go. No, I can't see. Take the pin out. Put it down a bit. Helps a bit. So you need to go over, under, over, and under, and under. So you're one of the ones that should have made up. I made more mistakes than I thought, and yet I thought I was so careful. This is what happens to me a lot, is that I was paying attention, I was chucking out a pair, but as you saw, if I didn't do it at the right time, my brain did get confused, and this is where I end up. And then of course, with such tiny threads, and oh, look, there's a bunch of beads from the spangle. It ends up being weird. It ends up, I end up messing it up somehow, and I obviously managed to do some stuff without keeping count properly, and because obviously you gain some, you lose some, so you should have the same amount of bobbins at the end of any given row. So let's sneak over these ones that we know are good. Stop trying to do things with you, and then concentrate on the ones that aren't so good. So we need to identify bin, yoink, snap. bin. Stand. Standard messy bobbin. It's almost like I forgot to pin stuff, but I know I did because they were pins. So you're over here somewhere, you're over there somewhere, and you are on that and over. You are possibly. As I say, this is where my brain hurts because I struggle to see what's under and over things. Right. So, you two need to come out. You two with the next bobbins. Bin goes in. Pin in. By the way, I never said I was the person to copy doing this. So. Right. You need to go out now. All the way back. You get a pin. And a twist. Oh, got backache now. Let me see if I can adjust my table a little bit better. There you go. Moved the pillow a little bit so it's a little bit more comfortable for me, considering I'm going to be here a little while more. So that's always a good plan. So these are my worker pairs. Have I already crossed them? Yes, I did. You might be able to see my head a bit more. No, maybe not. That's always a good thing. So we can work our way across. And I now have a little black dog behind me, because I'm sitting with a little bit more squareness to the couch. Therefore, there is a little bit more room for him behind me, and he does like sitting behind me. It's his favourite thing to do. Sometimes it's good because it's warmth on your back, and if you've got backache, that can be really beneficial. Other times it means there's a nose right under your elbow. Guess which we've got today? So let's go back across the row. And did we throw out some? No, we did not, because we're stupido. Stupido. You two need to go over there. You need to now be pinned. You see, you get into the habit of this. And you stop kind of, and once you've done it kind of through once, your brain goes, oh, I remember doing this last time. And it does make life a lot easier. Hi, Dorian. You got to finish unpacking. Well, at least you're not packing anymore, Dorian. At least, because I don't know about you, but I get sidetracked while packing. In that I go, oh, what's this? And 3 hours later, I haven't done anything else because I'm too busy going, look what we found. I mean, me and my ex-husband were clearing out my garage in my old house, and we had someone there to try and will us on to the whole kind of, finish cleaning the garage. Yeah, we found like 1980s discs from things, and we go, wow, and a manual for it. And then we found probably the oldest Mintos in existence and ate them because they were still good and we really liked them. And it was like, are you throwing that out? No. Well, why not? Because it's sacred. And the poor woman who was trying to adjudicate and keep us on track, well, bless her, she was on a losing battle. 2, 3, 4. So yeah, she was on a losing battle from the start, bless her. So yeah, she I mean, it wasn't her fault. It was definitely not her fault. But yeah, we did not throw out a lot that day. We really didn't. We really did not throw out anything like we should. And so, of course, here I am. I've moved house. That shit's still in my old garage. Nope, don't need a pin yet, idiot. So, top. Pin. Side. The other side. Oh, way over to the other side. No, it's not that far away. Pin. And in the middle. Tuck-de-tuck. And make it square. Frigging spangles. I hate these spangles. I definitely was right. I hate spangles. Bad spangles. Nasty spangles. Oh. Hang on. Brain fart. Oh no, you are the right thing. That's right. My brain farted briefly, as I'm sure you're well accustomed. Brain farts are something that I do plenty of. You need to be slightly longer, because you just do. It's like a dance routine, isn't it? Up high! To the left. To the right. Down low. And then make it square. Here we go. First row of rose ground, all done. So we could now go and do a little bit of the zigzag and the whole stitch and cloth stitch, and then do a bit more of this. Or we keep doing the rose ground, which is what we're going to do. So, shuffle you up a bit more, because you're just always in the way. You're like dogs. Bobbins are definitely like dogs. We now don't ever need you two again till we move to doing the next patch. But you're a bit short. Let's make you a bit longer, because, you know, like 2 inches, or 1.5 inches is not a good length for bobbin threads here. So, a bit longer for you. A bit longer for you. There you go. Now, you two can come over here. You need to be a bit longer. I think most of these, there are some plastic ones, so this is plastic, this is wood, most of them are wood. I do actually have, is it 9 or 12, might be 9 pairs of brass bobbins. Now they are nice. Now if I had a crap ton of those, they don't have the spangles on, they're supposed to have spangles on, but they're brass, they're quite heavy. You could really make do with not a lot of spangle on that, and you just want something to stop it rolling around, really. And they are beautifully heavy. They are magnificently heavy. But I've only got like 9 of them, and I'm gonna need like, I think I worked it out as 48 pairs or something for this. So that's 96 bobbins. 9 just doesn't really cut it, you know. So time to add 2 more bobbins. I'm sure you all recognise that song. Been in many, many things. Up to God wandering on the mountain trail. Yeah, we all know that. I don't remember where it actually stems from. We all know that. Pretty short. More bobbins, please. What the hell was that? Bang. 1, 2. I mean, that says it all, doesn't it? Sitting there, I can put my hand underneath it. It doesn't even lie flat. See, this is the one I was looking for. This is kind of the spangle I could go for, where there are beads in these holes. So if I move it over the green bead, you can see there are beads in the holes. So, but it's quite flat, but it's also really flexible, and so doesn't get, you know, it gets in the way, but it doesn't stay in the way. Unlike these that are, you know, are on wire and that are hard and flip underneath and get in the way, they're not. So yeah, I could go with a bit of that, but not so much the others, you know. So definitely not so much the others. What phone's going off again? Someone's probably rebooted something. Oh, the knot's come off. And now I'm all confused as to where I have this. So I need to do bin. That's where I was. I need a bin. When in doubt, you probably do need a bin. Someone's probably upgrading something with that change control because there were no changes listed today. It's one of those things. Teams is a really annoying product in that it's hard to mute some things because it says it's already muted, but it's not. Apparently someone still has a meeting open on their phone. How hideously sinful of them. That's what it's all about. You've also come undone because you're also annoying. Let's pick you back up. You're still a bit long. Let's try that. That's a bit better. Right. So we've done those. We need to do the middle. And a pin. And now to do make it square. You two can go over there. You two will be next. So, in the middle. To the left. To the right. In the middle. Stupid things. Now I see why these aren't so fun. It's too long and it was getting trapped under my finger. No, that didn't work right. So, pin first, and then the other half. That's better. Now make it square. That's not right. Yes, it is. That's right, for some reason my brain miscounted. Oh, backache. Sitting wonky earlier has not done my back of the world of good. Too old for that rubbish. So, in the middle. To the left. In terms of actual making lace speed, I'm not that slow. I mean, I'm not, speed against Alice. And there are plenty of videos of women who, frankly, just look to kind of go, and it's all done, but, and they're not sped up, more to the point. But, the bit that really slows me down is doing the pins. The picking up of the pin, the stabbing of the pin, I'm really cack-handed at picking up pins. And these spangles are not helping, and so, in terms of bobbin speed either. So, in that terms, this makes, it's surprisingly how much slower things can be when lack of ideal circumstances. I'm not saying this is going slowly, because to be honest, no, it's not. But here we are, 3 hours, 12 minutes in. Now, obviously, I didn't immediately start at 3 hours, so let's say it was 12 minutes in. I've been doing this 3 hours. It's not a lot of work done for 3 hours. I mean, it's quite a few pins. I've had to undo a couple of bits. I had to re-spangle one of my stupid bobbins that exploded on me. But it's not... This is not a speed sport. This is not a sport that you get to do and, I mean, I can reasonably, I won't say speed knit, but I'm a pretty efficient and fairly fast knitter. But like everything, there are certain things that slow you down. In knitting, I can do, if it's a pattern I know well, so it's a repetitive pattern, I can double knit, stroke knit the pattern pretty quickly because, well, all the words are in my head. I just need to get on with it. With weaving, if the pattern is repetitive and I've got the pattern in my head, or can calculate the pattern in my head with what's in front of me because it's repetitive, so even if I don't exactly remember, how many this is and that's to the right or left of something I needed to do, but I can tell by looking at it to form the shape I need to do this now, then again, I'm pretty reasonably fast at it. The problem I have is things like picking up pins. Because I have a pile of chaotic pins, where they are running around like a herd of cats, frankly, it does mean that I look at it and I can't see an individual pin. All I see is some light grey strokes, for want of a better word, in a painting of grey. So I can see some of the pins that catch the light, but they are not necessarily the top pin. They are just the one catching the light. And so I can't just grab a pin. I have to kind of feel around, and these are tiny pins. I think they're something like 0.4 millimeters wide. They are hairs of pins. So feeling them is quite difficult. It's not that I've got particularly unsensitive fingers. I mean, you know, if I run here, I can feel the texture and I can feel the slight bump of my pin and where the lip of my laminate is. So it's not that I don't have sensation. But if I put my hand in the pin, I can't always feel if I've got one or two pins in my hand, and it just makes it really complicated. So let me just check. We now need to finish the square. Let's do that before we get too carried away. So, okay, we've done another row of rose ground. You four will never be joining us again for a while. I'm sure I did pairs there. Two. No, I didn't, clearly. I can't have done. Sometimes you think I'd be mad in saying that, well, I obviously didn't get a pair. Well, that's not necessarily true. My lovely dogs have knocked my pillow off my table before now. And in doing so, have successfully broken a thread. But if the bobbin jumps while the thread is missing, so they all tangle, you unsort the things out, and then you go to do some work, and you realise, well, that's not up. I've got 3 bobbins, or I've only got 2, and I should either have 4 or 2 or 1, or and your brain's kind of going, well, why is it wrong? So maybe you count from the other end, and because sometimes, for example, like when we were looking at the ones from the cloth stitch diagonal there, because they don't come out of the pin, they either come out before the pin or after the pin, it can be hard to tell which pair is which, because the 2 bobbins that went to the pin may have been coming from different angles. So if the pin is missing or taken out, you are left with 2 bobbins that may not look related, but are the pair. And 2 bobbins that are close together that are actually of different pairs. And so sorting it out can be a bit of a challenge. And I did find that when I was doing my square, the first square, someone knocked my cushion on the floor and I picked it up and I sorted it all out. And then worked out I was missing a bobbin. So trying to find where it had come from and then going through the due diligence of trying to add it back in, because of course, should the thread snap? Does it snap here at the end of a pin with leaving a little tuft of a tail that you can see? No, it snaps back here in amongst the pins, so you can't see where it came from and where it ended. And other than undoing great wafts of it to find out where it came from and where this missing end is, it's really difficult. Time for 2 new bobbins. But it is not always as easy as it should be, just because it's just not. Why have you mated together, please? You are not related. There is no reason for you to be in such a close relationship. Thank you. Nearing the end of pin number 2, so as you can tell, if I'm nearing the end of pin number 2 and we are not quite halfway, you can see how I did not wind enough bobbins, but I was very much aware I had not wound enough bobbins. I just wanted to wind enough bobbins that I would not run out during my stream today. And then I could fill in the extras kind of as I went, or wind more bobbins and wait for you guys. And that is still a decision somewhat yet to be made. Do I do some more work of it off stream, or do I purely work on this on stream? Part of me says I do not want to have to stream just because I feel like working on it. But at the other point, I would like to document the process. So as you may be aware, I do upload the videos once done onto YouTube. I have changed my mind because originally I was not going to leave them on Twitch because obviously running reruns was not going to be a thing. But I did feel that if I left them there, maybe some people would watch them. So all future videos from this one on will be up on Twitch as available to watch for a few days. But obviously the ones on video on YouTube will stay there for, well, until I delete them, I guess, is the short answer. Where did you gain a little elastic band from? And moreover, how did you get an elastic band that... Sorry, banging the microphone, didn't mean that. I was throwing away an elastic band that had somehow gotten onto one of my bobbins, but was also over the thread. But now I have some elastic bands, but nothing that looks like that. The elastic bands that were out at the time were either blue, which were holding the group's bobbins together in my box, or black and white, because they were from a bracelet band making kit, and the bobbins that I pulled out of there, the packet is black and white. And I don't even think I opened it, so to be fair, not sure where it got that elastic band from whatsoever, because that should not have been so much of a thing. Right, start the square, because you're on the edge. This one has a hook on the end. I've got a couple of those and I couldn't be bothered to pull them out. I regret this choice already. So, yeah, let's just ignore the fact that this one's got an extra bit on the end. Pin underneath the nail. That's always a comfortable thing to do. Ouch. Pin into the end of the finger. I mean, to be honest, that's how half these pins get picked up. Is not that I pick up the pin, I stab myself with it and it comes out with my finger. Which is not ideal. It really isn't. It's not how, this is best done. But sometimes it's just the way it goes. Take out these two, put them there, tug on the old bits of string to the middle, cover the pin, square it off. In the middle, grab a pin, stab a pin to the left, not seeing the hole is middle. Square it off. in the middle. So I don't know what you guys are planning for the weekend. I may be planning some more of this. In fact, I almost certainly am. But at the same time, I am not looking forward to the spangles. So that will be a complication and a half. But I have nothing of major interest planned for the weekend. I do believe some friends will be dropping something round of mine that they've got, that they've been holding for me. I bought something off eBay, and basically the eBay seller lied. They said that for £6 they'd deliver it, and when it came down to it, it's too big. I've had way bigger things off eBay. I've had a big blanket box. It's 6 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot tall. This thing's huge. Funny how they could ship that, but this was a small table, and so they've kept this table for me because they were just down the road, and they've looked after it for a little bit, but they're hoping to be in the area over the weekend, so I may see them over the weekend. Briefly. Doesn't look like my best circle, but there we go. But other than that, I just foresee backache again. I had backache a couple of weeks ago, and to be honest, I think it's actually my back pointing out that while it's been quiet, it hadn't actually got over all of that. It was just being quiet. This knot is awkward with these bobbins. I don't. How can? The only way to do it is to make it really long so that you can lasso it, and then you have to spend half an hour winding it up. Whatever. And then the spangle gets in your hand and in the way. So, hence these spangles do need to go. They really do need to go. Right. So you two are done. You two in the middle. So yes, I'm not planning to do too much over the weekend, other than maybe some more of this to get it completed. Just as a reminder, you can see photographs and general witterings of either relevance or irrelevance, to be honest. But general witterings on Thread and Instagram. I am on Facebook as well, but I don't know. I do more things on Facebook, I think. I talk to other people and about random things that are not so crafty, whereas the stuff that goes on Instagram and Threads and stuff is my crafty stuff. So that's a good thing. So yeah, we're I don't know. I don't know what I'll do over the weekend. As I say, part of me does not want to feel I have to stream every stitch of this, but at the same time I do want to keep the record. So if I don't stream it or at least record it, then obviously I can't. It won't be an accurate representation of the work gone in. Because in a way, it's quite good to useful to document it like this, on the grounds that you can truly and quite easily work out how much time it took, because you can sit there and look at the video and go, right, well, I started at, 40 minutes in, I finished 3 hours and 20 minutes later, so that's how long it took me, whereas when you're doing it, on your own, you don't necessarily smack a stopwatch and time it and say, oh, well, I'll just go and get a drink, oh, I'll just have a wee, oh, the doorbell's gone, oh, the phone's done something. And you don't realise how much of it you were doing or not doing at the time. You just know that time has passed and maybe not enough of it looks like it was done for the amount of time in question. And it is, and so like I'm sitting and talking to you now, I'm not lacing at the making at the same time, mainly because I need to move and get some blood back in various parts of my anatomy. But it is that principle is, you've got a quite an accurate representation of what bits you made mistakes on, had to redo, where are your weak points, and so I do want to document it, but at the same time, not with spangles. Not with spangles. These spangles are a bad, bad thing. And I've just realised it doesn't look like you've got music anymore. There should be music. I'm not sure you're getting music right now. Interesting. Oh well, you were supposed to be getting music, but I don't think you are. So, I think you did to start with. Oh well. I do apologise. Usually there is some music in the background for the more quieter portions, and to mask my terrible voice. So yes, I know it's half an hour early, but hopefully you will forgive me. I feel that here is a reasonable point to finish today's stream. We have a number of rows ground, beautifully made there. We have a little bit of our cloth stitch diagonal. We I'm not going to say we've done a quarter of it, but we've done a chunk of it. I definitely need a bit of a break, and I'm hungry and I'm thirsty. So, and I need to stretch my legs and get some blood back into a couple of bits of me that seems to now be telling me it hasn't had blood for a while, and it meant to tell me but didn't. You know, those pins and needles of, hey, you starved us as blood. We didn't tell you we were falling asleep, but we're going to scream while we come back to wake. So I need to kind of walk that off a bit. I need to do something with small furry objects who just annoying. I mean, don't get me wrong, Rory is being the beautiful bolster cushion. He's supporting my back quite nicely, so my back isn't hurting so much. But he's pushing me onto the bony part of the sofa again, even though we moved a bit, because he's bigger than his sister. So I do think that now is a good time. I finished a bit of a row. I need to add more bobbins. What I may do is, if I do not feel up to streaming, I will try and record it and post it on YouTube as a non-Twitch video of additional work. Because, to be honest, you've seen all 3 stitches. You know the principle. It's just more of the same. So, realistically, you aren't overly missing out. But as I say, I do kind of want to document it as well. So, what I could do, I guess, is maybe do some, video it, and then kind of run it on Twitch, but be in a much more comfortable position, such as lying down and eating crisps or something, and type at you rather than talk at you live, because that could work quite nicely. Obviously, I explain a few things and mutter as I go along, as I've always done, but it might be a good way to fast forward in my eyes, because that way I'm not streaming. I can sit around, I can stop the recording and pause it, or and come back to it as if nothing happened. Can't really do that on a stream because you get bored and go away. So I think that I have to decide how I want to do that. Part of me says I should stream it live, otherwise I'm kind of cheating. It's a bit like diets, I'm kind of cheating if I don't. Because otherwise, like, someone else could have done it, or, it could be a different one, or, a whole vast array of things. So I do feel that a slight need to do it online. And of course, it's always good to talk to you all. So, but I do think today's stream is going to end here to give my poor butt cheeks a bit of a rest. And while I work out how I'm going to soften the couch, other than sit on a completely different part of it, which complicates matters in its own right because of the cables and lack of, why does everything only come with a 1 meter cable? And so but as you can see, we're almost, I'd say we must be nearly halfway through the quantity of pins to add. So the distance from there is about the same from the distance there. So we have half the bobbins on. There ain't a lot of room left now, is there? I mean, there's a bit, because obviously there's a gap here and a gap here, but you can see what I mean about bobbins and how much space they take. And as I said, the spangle's doing a really good job of stopping them moving around too much, but at the same time, they're in the way. Oh, what a yawn. They're in the way, and they're making the movement of the bobbins difficult, which is quite a frustration for me. So I think that's part of the reason I'm struggling with all the other bits of me going, oh, I'm not comfortable, is because my brain's not fully engaged and engrossed in this. It's, bits of it have wandered off to go, here, this bit of me's actually saying it's not comfortable, and you're hungry and you're thirsty. Did you know that? And so my brain's wandered slightly, and I think that's kind of why I need to bring it to an earlier close than I meant. But there's the start of my square. You can see how it's going, how I'm doing it. I will try and document as much as I can of it online, but oh god, I do apologise. I do think this is going to be what I would like. I need to check that the end result is airy, but not too airy, but not too dense, because obviously a net curtain is realistically see-through. You can have marks in it that are solid and marks that are not, but I don't want fly holes, which is why we've avoided the honeycombs and spider holes, because you can do some interesting spiders that make beautiful holes, and they do actually look quite nice, and they're the kind of spider I wouldn't mind, but they make holes, and so I don't really want holes for flies to come through, because, well, flies are really good at that anyway. So I do kind of want myself to be in a situation where I like it enough, and I really strongly believe that I do like this enough. I was a little concerned that it would be too plain. I'm not sure that that's the case anymore. I don't think that it will be too plain. As I say, I do apologise for yawning. I think that obviously the flat edge where we join it will look a bit rough, but at the same time, done right, I think you can make a feature of it, not, I won't say wrap very thin ribbon around it, but almost to that effect. Wrap some form of ribbon around it, or thicker thread, or even thinner thread that sparkles, something, and so it looks deliberate, but at the same time it's a join. And obviously in the middle potentially was going to be fairly plain, which in the original picture, of course, it was full of spiders, and as we know, I don't like spiders, but I think because it's going to be a net curtain, it either needs to be really busy, and so made up of a lot of swirls and so you're not staring at one point, or because we're doing squares, there are always going to be square shapes to it, and so that's enough detail. You're already going to be looking at the square. If you overcrowd it, it's just going to look messy. So I do think that a simple approach, which is what this is, I know I procrastinated a lot and checked a lot of stitches and combinations and should I do this, should I do that? Because you may have noticed I didn't do the different style cloth stitch section. I mean, they still end up with under over, but whereas this has got the double backwards and forwards, the other one does not, because this is a much thinner thread and would not produce the buckling. If I'd stuck with the chunkier thread, I probably would have changed it to the different style. But again, that can still have knock-on effects and needs testing as to whether it works in the square as well as you think it does. Because obviously you've got to change direction and turn corners, and I want to try and make